Evening and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, October 9th of 2014. The agenda tonight is, for leading off call to order, questions from the public regarding items not on the agenda. Then we have an application from Chipotle Mexican Grill for a change of manager. We have an application for AMZ Service for a limousine license. Application from Carson City Coins for a second-hand metals license. Then we have the best part of the evening, recognition of Norman Grossman, Legion of Honor medal recipient. We have a report from the Herbert Foss Intermodal Transportation Building Memorial between the agreement between the Veterans Council and the Foss Committee. We have an update on Aquarian water litigation. Selectmen goals and objectives, appointments, Selectmen town administrator reports, and then we will adjourn to executive session to discuss real estate and real property. So that's it for the evening. Do we have anybody here with questions from the public regarding items not on the agenda? Mark? Everybody knows you, but identify yourself.
Certainly, thank you. I'm Mark Duff, Fire Chief. I attended a seminar yesterday that was put on by National Grid, basically on gas main safety, fire department precautions, etc. And one of the points that they brought out is that there's been a 30% increase in the number of calls they are responding to within the last couple of years. Most of that coming from single-family homes. People who are putting fences in, deep-seated bushes. We even had a problem right here in Hingham where somebody was putting a real estate sign in a house in a front yard to sell the house. We went down into the gas main. It can happen with electric underground utilities too. So I just would like to warn the resident or advise the residents, if you're putting fences in, sprinkler systems, any of that stuff, get it dug safe. Make sure you're digging in safe areas. If you have a problem, call the utilities. They will mark those lines out for you. But there's been a huge increase, and in past years, contractors have gone in with backhoes and stuff. People have actually died because of inappropriate digging in the wrong location. So I was really shocked by that 30% increase, and I thought I'd bring it to the board.
Oh,
thank you.
Chief, thank you very much. That's shocking, interesting. With DigSafe, if you make the call, it's an 800 number, and they come out within a couple days.
Correct. They will. It's a free service, and they will, unless it's an emergency. It's free service even if it's an emergency. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing that, even if it's in your backyard, if you have any thought at all that there's a utility there, a gas line or whatever, call DigSafe. It's a 1-800 number. It's a free service, and within 3 days they will mark those lines out for you. We have an interesting situation going on right now where we had to call DigSafe today because we lost the power main going in, I think, in Fire Station 3, and they're currently on generator power until tomorrow. So at which time the light department has made some other arrangements to get power back into the building. So you may be seeing me again looking for an emergency transfer. Thank you.
We'll welcome that one. I heard that on the scanner and almost couldn't believe it at first. It was like, turn the scanner up.
Well, I can't give up a microphone. We've been chasing power outages in Hingham. The light department's been chasing power outages in Hingham for the last 2 or 3 days, and come to find out it was the fire station that was causing it.
Uh-oh. Okay. Did you come on up and identify yourself, if you would? Okay. Oh, we got 2.
Okay.
3?
Oh, wow. Okay. Hi, I'm Mary O'Connor from 5 Rosewood Lane. I live here in Hingham. And I would just like to read the following petition signed by over 100 concerned Hingham residents. It is our responsibility to make sure each and every employee feels safe and is fairly treated in the workplace. It's been the tradition of the town of Hingham for the Board of Selectmen, the town government, all departments and unions alike to work together on behalf of our town. At the Board of Selectmen's meeting on October 2nd, this tradition was compromised. The lack of respect that was displayed to employees Harry Sylvester, Roger Fernandez, and the people who spoke on their behalf was a disgrace and an embarrassment to our town. The Selectmen's first job is to protect and advance the best interests of the town as a whole. To accomplish this, the board must promote a work environment free of fear of irrational attacks. We call on the board to return to the town's practice of respectful and collaborative employee relations. And I have over 100 signatures.
Thank you, and we don't disagree with that. That was not our best moment last week, and we'll address that at some time.
Great.
But, yeah, there was no attack on anybody, but we agree with you in every way.
All right,
If
thank
you
you.
want to leave that with us, that would be
Yes,
fine.
I would. Thank you.
I'll take it. Thank you for coming.
Do we have copies of that?
I think it's in here.
Well, those are the all the people.
Okay, do you have what you said? Because we'll put that right in the minutes. Thank you.
I'd like to comment if I could.
Quickly, so we can get through the agenda?
Yes, I've requested that we put this matter on the agenda tonight. I think that this is a critical matter of importance. The reaction that I've received, quite frankly, to all of this has been overwhelming. I'd say let's just deal with it, address it, and move on. And I'd ask that you allow that to be discussed tonight, because I'm going to continue to raise it until you do.
And we will address it, but I got in trouble
When?
last week. As I told the town administrator and Betty Foley, we'll have it on the agenda next week.
All right, but, you know, my problem with this is that what happened last week generated some significant unhappiness with the town employees. And I have some questions that I think are very important to clear up for the people. The questions are being raised and asked, and I think it's fair comment that we speak to it immediately at the earliest opportunity, which is now.
I got in trouble with changing the agenda last week. I'm not going to do it again. We will address it. There was a great deal of misinformation that appeared in the Journal. We're going to try and correct some of that. And we'll do this next week, because I think one of the ideas I saw was to look at a process and make sure we have the proper process in place, and I think that's a very good idea.
The problem I have with that is that just by looking at the rerun of that meeting, the Human Resources Director was essentially attributed to having released someone's personal information. I've since spoken to Mr. Basler, and he denies ever doing any such thing. Mr. Alexiadis made very clear that he never provided this information. So I'm very troubled. I'm very troubled that this could get from an anonymous source into your hands, leading into an investigation without any explanation at all. And I think you owe it to the public to speak to it.
At the very end, and I want to get back on track, David asked me to read in information, a couple sentences about personal information. Let me do that now, and then we'll address that. The resume that I had was provided here.
You don't need to explain it to me.
All right.
I need you to
Here.
explain it to
David Basler asked me to address personal information. David is our HR director and is in charge of protecting employee files. He's like the Delta Force. He really is. No information leaves his office unless it is authorized and he confirms that it is legal to do so. An example of that is when we interview candidates for the Hingham Police Department. David's right there. When we're done, he reclaims the resumes and shreds them. So he is definitely on top of this.
It still doesn't address how you got the resume. And Mr. Basler says that he didn't give it to you. Mr. Alexiadis says that he didn't give it to you.
I have a different recollection.
Well, all right. You know what?
It doesn't.
I'm sorry,
let's go
Roger,
on.
that this happened. I really am. as a selectman, as a resident of this town, I really am sorry. I thank you, Mr. Gannon, for seconding the motion to end this, very much so.
We all
I think
voted
that you-
unanimously for it, Paul.
I think your support on this really was the right thing. I think you owe the town some explanation on what prompted you to go forward on this. If you don't want to do this now, so be it, but
Irma, if you wait, I think it'll
Hold it.
get worse.
See, it's not going to get worse. The issue was the liability to the town. All of this could have been done quietly in an executive session in 5 minutes, and it would have been over.
no, I disagree, because
I
you
do.
don't get to do the investigations and then decide whether something should go forward. We're a team. Paul
I
Gannon,
understand
Irma
that.
Lauder, and Paul Healy are the selectmen of
I
this town.
understand that. And again, we
Well,
could
not the
have
way
had
that-
a 10-minute session in
Okay, but you know
executive
what?
session, and it would have been
The way that was read in the coverage in the Hingham Journal today indicated quite clearly that you were attributing that hearing to Mr. Alexiadis, and I have a very, very distinct, different memory. And I resent that, because he's doing a very fine job under very difficult circumstances.
I understand.
And to me, it's like, if you did this, take the hit. Don't lay it off on Ted Alexiadis.
I'm not.
Don't lay it off on Dave Basler.
The issue was the mismatch, the concern about the liability to the town.
You said at the outset that this was a matter of credentials, and you were concerned about that, and that was cleared up 2 weeks before that hearing. 2 weeks.
Actually,
And you chose not to accept the investigation.
It
And
wasn't.
instead conduct this, whatever that was last week, which was appalling.
I think it was appalling too, Paul. I'm not pleased at all with
That
how that came down.
Gannon and Healy didn't push that.
But Irma, why did you do it then? If you thought it was appalling, why did you continue to do that?
Because originally, it was just going to be an executive session to talk with Roger. And it turned into a Wagnerian opera because somebody spread the rumor that the Board of Selectmen was going to fire Roger Fernandez.
It's posted on the agenda.
No, those are the words I am told by the town admin. Hold it. Hold it. If you're going to speak, get the chair's permission. Those are the words you have to use when you go into executive session. Period. Apparently, for the 9 reasons.
Yeah,
All
correct.
yeah.
To take any employment action, for the board to consider any employment action against any employee of the town, they have to give the employee a 48-hour notice and let them know that the meeting could be subject to discipline and/or termination. So those are standard words we have to use in every situation when we seek to discipline an employee or have a discussion in an executive session. It's the employee's right to have that in executive or in public session.
And the intent was fact-finding and trying to work through the issues of the liability to the town versus the credentials and the fact that he was doing plans and stuff. And that's
Yeah,
it.
but the problem
That's
is
it.
that you indicated that someone had come to you with this, and you refused to identify the person that did. And we are now confronted with a series of anonymous letters that are attacking other town employees.
The anonymous
And
letters.
that's a big problem.
Well, Paul, if you look at anonymous letters, I can't help that.
I don't, Ms. Lauder, I don't.
We don't deal with anonymous letters. Period.
just-
Why did you use that as your basis?
That wasn't the basis. That letter was not. It was a simple inquiry.
Can I just say one thing?
Be my guest.
And I'm going to be very brief, but I think I could be a lot longer, but I know this is going on next week, and but it is raised. I just want to make sure, and I think Roger knows this, and I want everybody to know this, that I read about 6 o'clock, 5:30 tonight, I read the Journal. My position on this, and everybody was here and they saw it, was completely misrepresented. At no time did I pay any attention to that letter. I read it and threw it away. I told people from the Meadows that was not the basis. I did not bring this thing forward. I listened. The council said there was a fair question you're asking. I knew early on this was wrong. It finished up. I seconded the motion, and that's it. On the record, watch the tape. I never used that to go after Mr. Fernandez at all. And I resented that I read in the paper that it said that I used that to fire him. Well, you
You did. Actually,
You
Mary
did.
Ellen, you did. Excuse me.
I
Mary
relied
Ellen
on
did
an
it.
anonymous letter to consider discipline or dismissal. I made it clear to Roger that I was not here to condemn him or discharge him. I never said it. I told people on the phone, I told people in the Meadows, I disregarded that. That's a quote from you, Mary Ellen. I didn't know who you were. I'm glad you're here. And there's another misquote. This thing about this resume fraud, that came up in the context of an investigation that the town administrator is doing. That's what he was charged to do. That's what Mr. Feely reported on. I never accused him of resume fraud. I used the words, but that's you know what? That's inappropriate to accuse me of something because I was referencing a letter that was an official document. Imagine that if we get accused of stuff because we reference an official document. I've said enough, but thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're done with this.
Well, we're not done. We're far from it. And, I mean, if you want to continue the discussion next week, I suppose we can do that. I'd rather just get it done this week, but you know what? So be it.
Well, I think
repeat
we
my
need-
apology to Mr. Fernandez. I'm appalled by that. I can tell every town employee who's watching this tonight that my guard is on full alert. I do not like what happened to Mr. Fernandez, and I'll do everything I can to prevent a repeat performance.
There will be no repeat. That I can assure
Okay.
everybody. Okay, let's go on with the agenda. Chipotle Mexican Grill, are they here? Come on up.
Get that. Don't worry, get that.
How you doing?
I'm okay, how are you?
How's it going?
On a lighter note.
Did you bring any
Hey.
samples? You know, we're Greek, so food is what, you know.
Let's get back on track. Tell us what is happening here, and introduce yourself if you would.
Right, I'm Rodney Wynn. I'm the general manager of Chipotle's in Hingham, 92 Derby Street. And we're here to change a manager. The other managers are gone, and I'm there. I've been there for a couple of years. And for the liquor license, I think this is for.
Are you
Change of manager.
Change of manager.
Change of manager, yeah.
And are you TIPS trained and familiar with all the regulations?
Yes.
And everybody that works there is?
Yes.
And how long have you been there?
December will be 2 years.
Okay. Mr. Healy, any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Lauder. Mr. Wynn, are you a manager of any other Chipotle establishment?
No, I actually have been training managers to take over Chipotle. But no, I'm not the manager of any other one but this one.
Okay.
Mr. Gannon?
Just briefly. Well, you and your company are very lucky. My daughters make frequent visits to Chipotle. They are not alone, believe me, I can tell you.
Oh, yes, I know.
You seem to
know.
be definitely a gathering place for the
Yes.
young
Yes.
Folks. Food's very good, too.
It is. We try our best, definitely.
Excellent. Any other questions? No? Want to make the motion?
I'll move we approve the request of Chipotle Mexican Grill of Colorado LLC, DBA Chipotle Mexican Grill, for a change of manager to, it says Devin Lambert, but that should be Roger Wynn?
Rodney.
Rodney, excuse
Rodney.
me, sir.
That's okay.
Okay.
I moved it.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you at the restaurant.
Yes, I'll be there. Thank you.
The application for the limousine service is next. And Abdelaziz Zaire?
My name is Abdelaziz Zahir.
Can you pull the microphone a little?
My name is Abdelaziz Zahir. I'm just trying to open, a business, so it's like a limousine company. Well, I've been in business for too long. So, actually for almost like 3 or 4 years. At the same time, I'm a banker. I work for the bank, for Citizens Bank. I've been doing this for like a part-time job. But I like it. So when one of my kids, I sent them to college. I like to open my own business and provide this service for the city and give them a flat rate. I started with 2013, it's a Suburban, black and black. I'm trying to provide like a flat rate to everyone from here to the airport. And doing very good, customer service for everybody.
I know Betty's done a lot of work on this. Do you want to go through
And
every?
We have sent Mr. Zahir's information over to the police department. They conducted their usual checks. Lieutenant Nourkaitis inspected the vehicle, made sure that all the safety equipment was up to date. Mr. Zahir, I believe, is the only driver in the business. So as of right now, everything is just fine. They've conducted a query check, and they're happy with what they have found on Mr. Zahir's.
Where will your location be in Hingham?
It's 21 it's 21 Riverback Road, so it's going to be like a.
Okay. Paul?
Do you know Edward Tatunjan?
Okay.
Do you know Edward Tatunjan?
Tangent?
Just a question. Yes or no?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Do you know a man named Edward Tatunjan?
No, sir.
Okay. No further questions.
Have any questions?
None? Okay, any questions from the audience on this one? Easy. Mr. Gannon?
Okay, I'll move to approve the issuance of a limousine license. And I apologize if I say it wrong.
Sorry.
Abdelaziz, is that here?
Abdelaziz, yes.
Close. Yeah.
You can see
DBA AMZ Service, Inc., 21 Back River Road. AMZ Service has been approved for one vehicle at this time. Mr. Zahir is the sole limousine driver for AMZ Service, Inc.
Thank you.
You going to second?
I'll second that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next one is, thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you.
The next one is Carson City Coins for a second-hand metals license. Do we have anyone here? Come on up. Would you tell us a little bit about your business and introduce yourself? And
Yeah, my name is Matthew Sharamonte, and I'm in the coin business, and I want to open a small little coin shop on Whiting Street, 49 Whiting Street.
what all does that entail? Because I know Betty has done quite a bit of good work on this one, too.
Yeah, I have a store in Halifax that I've had for 3 years. It's in the Halifax Plaza, Cumbie's Plaza, and we deal with vintage watches and coins and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we'd be doing over here.
Betty, do you want to
You do some secondhand metals as well, Mr. Giamonte?
Yeah, we do some jewelry and that kind of stuff.
And again, I went over to the police department, and I had them talk to the police chief in Halifax, where Mr. Giamonte has his other business, and he's very well respected in the community down there, takes care of his business down there. The requirements of the law are that he has to keep books, and the police department goes in and has the right to inspect. They have to hold things for a certain length of time and all that sort of stuff. So, again, the chief has checked this out, and he's given it the nod.
Okay. Mr. Healy?
What percentage of the take that comes into your store down in Whitman is determined later to be stolen property?
In Halifax, I had a store in Whitman that I closed. That's where I kind of started the business, and then I moved to Halifax. But it's from town to town. It's different from town. I mean, if I was in Brockton, it would be probably, 90% of it stolen. Halifax is probably 90% good, 10% the other way.
Well, what steps do you take, if you can illuminate to the people present here?
Yeah, so what happens is somebody would bring in a coin. I would buy the coin, I would take their ID, I would log on the computer database, I'll show a database, what the item was and who brought it in, and then I have to hold it for 30 days, which after I can, sell it or do whatever with it.
And do they sign something
They
indicating
do.
that that's their
They sign
property?
something, and I can't remember the last time it's happened to me in Halifax, but usually it's, it entails me going to court and
And do you in fact
saying
go to
that's the
court
guy that brought it in, and, I've done that a few times.
in the Brockton District Court?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I've returned things that, I hate to say it, but things that normally probably wouldn't have seen the owner again, saying like, somebody would bring me something rather than bring it to Brockton or bring it into the city where it would probably disappear forever. I've returned a lot of things to people, and I think I think that's a good thing,
Do you have
As far as
camera
that.
surveillance in your store?
I don't. I don't have it in Halifax.
Are you planning to put it in Hingham?
I've never really had a need for it. Talking like robberies and stuff.
Or just who is selling? Or who you're buying from?
Well, I take their ID and I photocopy it, and then have them sign it, and then do all that. So I've really never had the need for a computer. I guess I could, if I could get like one of those little computer cameras, and aiming at them, maybe have them hold up their coin, or, But I know at a lot of cities like Boston and a lot of cities, they use like a fingerprint that's dialed into their computer. So then, the fingerprint will be printed onto the slip, which I thought was kind of, cool, but it never really took on around here,
Mr. Gannon?
Sure, thank you. So I just want to make sure I understand that in dealing in secondhand metals, so how does the business work? I mean, someone brings in jewelry or something and...
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, but I sell a lot of coins that would be bought from dealers or on the computer and that kind of stuff too, so mostly the things in my store in Halifax are things that I've just bought myself.
Okay.
And not so much from people, but that's some of it too,
Okay. What's the hours of operation? Do you...
Monday to Saturday, and I wanted to open 10 to 5.
Hi. Any questions from the audience on this? Any more questions, Paul?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion. I think it's your turn.
Before I vote, though, I have to tell you, there's no objective reason for me not to support what you're doing, but this kind of stuff makes me a little uneasy because I work in a court system where I see stolen property coming through stores like yours on a fairly regular basis. And, Ms. Lauder asked you if you had cameras, and you said no. I really think you should have cameras here, if for no other reason, just to protect your own reputation. I'll make a motion that we approve the issuance of the secondhand metals, is it medals or metals license?
Metals.
To Matthew Chiamorante, excuse me if I've mispronounced your words, sir, your name, DBA Carson City Coins, 49 Whiting Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, thank you, and good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Grossman, would you join us with Jamie Litchfield?
Help him up.
Take your time.
Not a problem.
Second.
Mr. Grossman, we are humbled and honored to have you here.
I'm very honored to be here.
And I'm going to read a letter from the Consulate General of France, and then we're going to ask you if you would tell your story and maybe show us a few pictures. Mr. Grossman brought his diary along with him. And Jamie if you'd introduce yourself, I think most people know who you are, but
I'm Jamie Litchfield. I'm the interim VSO for Hingham while Keith's deployed.
okay. This was sometime this summer.
Bastille Day.
Bastille Day. With France.
Right.
Dear Mr. Grossman, I am pleased to inform you that by decree of President Holland, you have been appointed a Chevalier, is that okay?
That's right.
Of the Legion of Honor. This award testifies to President Holland's high esteem for your merits and accomplishments. In particular, it is a sign of France's infinite gratitude and appreciation for your personal and precious contribution to the United States' decisive role in the liberation of our country during World War II. This is kind of the important part. I don't think you knew him personally, but the Legion of Honor was created by Napoleon in 1802 to acknowledge services rendered to France by persons of exceptional merit. The French people will never forget your courage and your devotion to the great cause of freedom. It's a true pleasure for me to convey to you our sincere and warm congratulations. And then it goes on to talk about when you're going to get your award. And it is signed by Fabian Fici,
Yeah.
Consul General.
Right.
So now I'll ask Mr. Grossman if you would kind of give the high points, because I've heard enough now that I think it would take about an hour for your accomplishments.
Well, I don't know about that, but the high points, as you probably have all seen several movies about D-Day and have seen what the invasion was like and how massive it was, and I was 19 years old. I enlisted in the Army because I felt it was important. And if anyone saw the Roosevelt years on Channel 2 a week or two ago, you'll know that the spirit in this country was entirely different than it is today. We were very much concerned about whether our country would survive with a nutcake like Hitler at the head of Germany, and so a lot of us did volunteer, and I volunteered. I was going to the University of Pennsylvania, and I volunteered there. I was put in a program where they said I would be I would go to officers training school. Well, that was to get me in. I was sent to Texas. I did my basic training. I went to Camp Shenango in Pennsylvania. Before I knew it, I was on the Queen Mary with 20,000 other buddies going to England. I joined the 29th Division, which was the first division that went to England during the war. And it was a National Guard company from Virginia and Maryland. And I met a lot of Southern boys who were still fighting the Civil War. My first experience was the corporal. We were gathered in the barracks, and the corporal looked at me and said, "You look like Private Berger." Well, I guess I did. I had thick black hair, and I wore horn-rimmed glasses. And if you remember Private Berger from This Is the Army, and that was my nickname. Everyone called me Berger. The invasion, we trained for the invasion for 2 years. Or my outfit did. I joined them when they were there a year, so I had training for a year. And it was very intensive training, and I'm very thankful for it because it was the only way we could survive. I will not go into what happened when we got into the Higgins boats and took the rough ride into the beaches. But let me tell you a story. Everyone has a war story, so I'll tell you mine. I ran across the beach, and I wound up against a concrete wall And who was next to me but my good friend Frank Oberle. Frank was from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I went to the University of Pennsylvania, so he thought I was the greatest thing that came down the turnpike. I said, Frank, how are we going to get out of here? They're shooting at us. Machine guns. We were supposed to go through a pass. They got it all covered. He said, I'll tell you what, we'll look for a path that goes up the side of the hill and get off the beach. Well, Frank found the path, and we went up this path, but we didn't know it was mined. It was mined, and the fellow in front of Frank hit a mine and was blown up, but we did make it to the top. I didn't see Frank for another 25 years. When I did see, I went to a reunion of the 29th Division, and when I did see Frank, I said, Frank, do you remember me? He said, by God, it's Berger. He did remember me. And we talked for a while about different people that were in the outfit, and it was a great experience to meet him. And he says, do you remember what happened on the beach? I said, yeah. You found a path, and we went up it. Up the path, it was mine, but we got there. He said, no. You know what you said to me all the way going up the hill? I'm right behind you, Frank. I'm right behind you. And I was, because I said, Frank, you were the best shield that I ever had. And we did get to the top. It took a few days, and we took a town called, I just want to refer to my notes. My memory isn't what it used to be either.
Which beach did you land on?
We landed on Omaha Beach.
I wanted the people to hear
Bloody
that.
Omaha, they called it.
Yep.
I want to tell you about the French people. A couple of days after we landed, we were told to take a town which was on the coast, a small town. We took it. It took 3 assaults, but we did take it. And then we had to go from house to house, and I went into this room, busted into this home where I think the commandeer lived, because there was a feather bed and a big SWAT sticker over his bed. And the barrage started as soon as we go into a town. The Germans start to bomb us. So we were told to get out of the town, and as we went around the corner, there was 20 or 25 Frenchmen singing the Marseillaise with flowers, and they were just wonderful to us. I mean, can you imagine in a barrage of artillery that these French people were so thankful to us that we were there, that they stood there and wished us well. As a matter of fact, when I did get my award, a Frenchman came up to me and said, do you know, it took us 3 years for you to get here, and we waited every day for you. And I finally get to meet someone who was in the invasion, and I am so thankful to you. And he started to cry. It was an unbelievable scene. And this is how they are in Normandy. The French people there are so thankful to Americans and just think we've been so wonderful to them. I could go on and tell you many stories, but I'm sure you all heard lots of war stories. So I think I'll just end it there.
Now, have you done an oral history? You have so much information.
Yes, I wrote. After I was wounded on July 15th, this was the day before we attacked St. Lo. What happened, and I couldn't put this in my manual, the night before the attack, we got a new lieutenant who had just graduated from West Point. Well, I never saw anyone so nervous in my life. So we all talked to him the night before the attack and tried to encourage him and tell him what to do. There were very few, at this point of the invasion, there were very few non-coms or commissioned officers still with us. So we really were doing everything on our own. So it was good to get a lieutenant, but he really was not much help to us. Anyway, about 10 o'clock we went to bed in our foxhole, very comfortable bed, and we slept the night, and I got up in the morning and I said, well, where's the lieutenant? We don't know. He just wandered off. I said, well, I got to go find him. So I don't know what possessed me, but I jumped over the hedgerow in front of us. I went down this field, and a couple of mortars got me, one in the stomach and one in the arm. And I heard Frank say, Berger's hit, Berger's hit. And soon after that, a couple of medics came out. They bandaged me up, and they said, Norm, I know we can't take you now. We don't have a stretcher, but we'll be back. I said, oh, boy. As I lay there, I heard the Germans talking in back of the hedgerow. And the morphine made me go to sleep. And I woke up mid-afternoon. They were still talking. About 4 or 5 o'clock, they did come back with a stretcher. They took me out, thank God, and put me in a Jeep, and they drove me to a field hospital where the doctors took care of my wounds. And the rest of the story is I'm here at Linden Ponds, and I like it very much. I'm glad to be in Hingham. It's a beautiful town.
And we're happy that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just tell you, there are thousands of men and women now who fight for our country. And I suppose many of you are veterans. And a veteran is a veteran. You're shaking your head. I imagine you are too. A veteran is a veteran no matter what he does. No matter, he gives time for his country to defend his country, and I have the utmost respect for any veteran. I just make one. I've been at Linden Pond 6 years. I'm now chairman of the Veterans Association there, and we have a great association, and we do a lot of good things, but we got to get more interested in the town of Hingham.
Absolutely. Norman Grossman, you are a role model for all of us.
Thank you.
And certainly for anybody that's considering a career in the armed services.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for your service. That's an amazing story. Mr. Healy.
I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Grossman last year when I sought guidance from the Veterans Council at Linden Ponds, and I found your observations and your reflections very helpful. I've traveled to Normandy. I've walked those beaches. It's powerful. I salute you.
Yeah. I usually start to cry, so.
That's why I'm stopping.
You can't do that. That doesn't look that good on TV.
No, I know.
Mr. Grossman, I'll tell you that by sheer luck recently, I happened to watch, and I've seen shows before, but I happened to watch the documentary on the invasion of Normandy.
Right.
And I was breathless at the courage and the valor of the people that fought, and some obviously died, and for freedom here and also throughout the world. And it's an honor to be in your presence, sir. You're a hero here, and now you're recognized by the French, but you're a hero to us as well.
Thank you very much. Do you remember that little man on the beach that was hit 3 or 4 times in the jaw in this documentary? I know him. He became a very successful surgeon and is a spokesman for the 29th Division today.
Amazing. One of the things I find so amazing is your generation and people like you that have done extraordinary things. are so humble that you really don't speak about them, and you should, to set an example for all of us and all of the young people. Another person that was in Hingham that I didn't know until the day of his funeral, and I'd known the man for 40-some years that I've lived here, and that was Steve Baker.
Oh, really?
Yep, who was a brilliant builder, could do anything with a piece of wood with his hands, and did not know until his funeral that he was part of Omaha Beach as well.
Yeah. Well,
Never
I
spoke
kept
of
it secret for 6 years, but when they gave me the medal, it all broke loose.
And can I tell you, your secret's blown now. 25,000 people plus will see this. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure.
We have a picture of the medal. Mr. Grossman has the medal on.
Yeah, actually, Bob, if you can get the medal, that'd be better than the picture.
This is true.
There you go.
Awesome.
Oh, I didn't see that up there.
We need to be able to see what
Didn't have those in our day.
Well, thank you very much.
Still getting used to it.
Yeah, are we? And I
Son
hope
is the
you'll...
town manager
Oh, yeah?
in Maine.
Oh, why don't you speak that? Speak.
I just said one of my sons, I have 4 sons, and we finally got a girl. We got the 5th child with a girl. But one of my sons is a town manager in Maine.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Okay.
Actually, we'll scan it and put it up with the documents. I'd like that. Is that all right with you?
Sure.
So people can read it?
Or is this
It's quite
yours,
or?
or-
It's quite a nice picture.
Well, they took that at Linden
Want to give
Bonds
it
for me.
to Sharon?
Thank you very much.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Good
Do you
luck.
want your photos back?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
We'll put, Mr. Grossman, we'll put all of that in the Veteran Services offices, too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to bring 2 other veterans up, which I kind of placed you in front of Peter Finney and John Asher.
Your name again, Mr. Grossman.
Uh-oh.
What do you think, you're sick?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jamie, for bringing him. Yeah.
Oh, I think so. I like the way you smile at some of my jokes.
We're now going to move to the agreement that's been crafted and signed between the Veterans Council and the FOSS Committee. Mr. Claypool is in Florida dealing with a leaky roof, so John Asher is here representing him, but I want to thank, and the agreement is in our folders. There's an unsigned one because the signed one was kind of a bad copy. I want to thank you both, and to you, John, on behalf of Mr. Claypool, for doing exactly what we asked you to do, to work it out between you. And I think it's a wonderful agreement. Peter, if you'd like to say anything, we'd love that. Sure. No need for a vote since both principals signed it. And
no, thank you,
Yes.
Madam Chair. I'll just simply say that, as you had requested, Mr. Claypool and I did get together. We did craft this agreement that you have in front of you. I do have a signed version if you need me to make a
oh
copy.
no, we have the signed version.
Got
It
it.
just wasn't as readable as it should be.
Right. And then I simply want to say, and as John is sitting here on behalf of the Veterans Council, that the FOSS Memorial Committee is looking forward to working together with the Veterans Council, and we're I think this is going to be a big day for Hingham when we get this across the finish line. So we'll be back, as we should be, on a regular basis to keep the Board of Selectmen informed of what we're doing. And for all 3 of you, thank you for your support.
Well, thank you both. And thank you for the inclusion here where we're bringing everybody working together. And Mr. Healy.
Since we've got the Navy in town, I'll use a naval metaphor.
Wait a minute, we have the Army, and we have a Marine.
We do.
Be careful.
Bye. My wife has a cousin who told me a story. He flew sea stallions on the Roosevelt, and he happened to find himself in the Sea of Japan on the fantail and of some kind of cruiser, and he visited the ship, and things started to get a little rough, and what little rough in his vernacular was 50-foot seas. So when he lifted off and he started getting some push, a wave came in and it was about 2 feet off of his bottom. And I'm glad that you're at the helm on this, Captain Finney, because I want somebody steady, doesn't get rattled when it gets a little rough. So I appreciate you sticking in there.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. Appreciate that, too.
Mr. Gannon.
I'm not going to try to match that metaphor.
No, I can't.
You're a little nauseous on those 50-foot waves.
I don't know.
That story's
Thank you, gentlemen. though.
I'd just like to add that on this Sunday at 1500, but that would be 3 o'clock civilian time, there will be the annual recognition for our Medal of Honor recipient, Herbert Lewis Foss, at the Fort Hill Street Cemetery. So if we're talking a night where we're discussing great valor and bravery, there's something we can do this coming Sunday to honor that as well.
And please, everybody, I'm going to mention it again at the end with the Selectmen reports. That was on my list of things. Please come out. It's 45 minutes long, very, very good. We get a lot of representation from our public safety people, and the Honor Guard comes and all the veterans come. It's quite good, and it's going to be a beautiful day. What more could you ask for, and how perfect to have it in the fall. So, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Go Navy.
And go, what do you mean, go Navy? Yes. Norman?
The babies don't play those till late that night, so there's no excuse.
No, I like it. Mr. Grossman said there will be no excuses. Attendance will be taken. The Patriots game is late in the day. Thank you. And Mr. Asher, don't wander off too far.
Mr. Grossman.
Yeah.
Mr. Grossman, I think that ceremony will take precedent over any Patriots game. There's plenty more to come, right?
I think so.
We'll now ask Kerry Ryan and John Asher to come up and give us an update on the Aquarian water litigation.
Thank you, Irma. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I welcome the opportunity to update the public regarding the progress of the legal action against Aquarian initiated by the unanimous vote of the Board on July 3rd, 2013. As you will recall, the town filed a complaint with the Supreme Judicial Court, the Commonwealth's highest court, where several other water utility suits have been decided over the years. For the purpose of determining both the purchase price of our water system and whether the water treatment plant is considered to be part of the water system's corporate property. This graphic timeline may assist in understanding how vigorously the suit has progressed during the past 15-plus months. On August 30th, 2013, the Supreme Judicial Court ordered that the matter be transferred to the business litigation session of the Suffolk County Superior Court, a special court created precisely for the purposes of resolving complex disputes of this sort. Since that order, there have been 4 hearings in the business litigation session, 3 essentially for the purpose of establishing and monitoring a schedule of events to move the case forward, and 1, a week ago today, to hear a motion regarding the legal meaning of 2 elements in the case, actual cost and corporate property. As a result of those 4 hearings, a trial date of February 23rd, 2015, next February, has been scheduled with the expectation of both the town and Aquarian
that the trial would take approximately 1 week. So what's happened since July 3rd, 2013? Well, if you look at the left end of the graphic timeline, you will see that the 2 months after the court's transfer to the business litigation session was the time during which Aquarion's attorneys prepared and filed Aquarion's answer to the town's complaint of July 3rd. During that same time, the town continued to conduct its financial analysis. At the October 22nd, 2013 initial business litigation session conference, the town, Aquarion, and the court set up the scheduling of all events through the production of expert reports by both parties. From November 2013 through March of 2014, both the town and Aquarion engaged in written discovery. That means that all of the relevant, non-privileged emails, reports, notes, minutes, and presentations that should be produced in accordance with the rules of legal discovery were collected, copied, indexed, and turned over to the other party. As part of that discovery process, committee member Ed Siegfried and I, working with town special counsel Carrie Ryan and the town's financial experts, spent several days at the water treatment plant reviewing the contents of more than 60 bankers' boxes of water company documents, minutes, and reports going back to the formation of the company in 1879. The second business litigation session conference on April 9th of this year made minor schedule adjustments but affirmed that the aggressive schedule initially established by the court in October was essentially being met by both parties. The exchange of the written discovery material in late March of this year enabled the town's and Aquarion's attorneys to determine whom should be scheduled for non-expert witness discovery depositions. 3 executives of Aquarion were deposed by the town's special counsel, and in turn, all 5 members of the Water Company Acquisition Study Committee, the then Board of Selectmen liaison to the study committee, and Board of Selectmen Chair Bruce Rebuffo, and the town administrator Ted Alexiadis were all deposed by Aquarion's attorneys. Those non-expert depositions were completed on schedule by the end of this past May. The town delivered its expert witness report at the end of June, and Aquarion has just delivered its expert witness reports on September 15th. Again, both deliveries in accordance with the schedule ordered by the court in April. The town's expert gave the opinion that the water company purchase price should be approximately $58 million. Aquarion's expert gave the opinion that it should be $192 million. Both the town's and Aquarion's expert reports are available for public viewing on the Water Company Acquisition Study Committee's webpage on the town's website. At the third business litigation session conference on July 9th, Aquarion's attorneys asked the court's permission to file a motion for partial summary judgment with respect to 2 terms in the 1879 statute which formed the water company, actual cost and corporate property. The court held a hearing on Aquarion's motion and the town's opposition to that motion on last Thursday, October 2nd, and signaled its intent to rule on that motion on or before December 1st of this year. The court allowed the filing of that motion with the express understanding that it would not cause slippage of the February 23, 2015 trial date, acknowledging the town's concern that delay works to the financial disadvantage of the town and its taxpayers. Regarding financials, the town has expended just under $510,000 since the inception of the legal action initiated by the Board of Selectmen on July 3, 2013. At this time, the additional funding authorized by Town Meeting 2014 still seems sufficient to pay for expert, legal, and administrative expenses that may be incurred through the trial beginning in February next year. The remaining events between now and the trial are the town's production of rebuttal reports to Aquarion's expert reports, which are due next week on October 15th. Expert depositions from both parties' experts are scheduled for completion on December 1st. In summary, there's been a tremendous amount of work accomplished in a relatively short period of time. Water Company Acquisition Study Committee members continue to support the effort when appropriate at the direction of the Board of Selectmen and the town's special counsel in order to help meet schedule deadlines and minimize cost. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions at this time, with the understanding, obviously, that I can't answer questions which might jeopardize the town's legal position. Thank you.
Do you want to turn the lights back on? Let me just say, now that I've attended a couple hearings, we are very ably, and I mean that, represented by Kerry Ryan. And I think the Water Study Acquisition Committee, which I always can't get that out, has done a spectacular job. Now that I'm much closer to it, I'm very appreciative.
Thank you.
Mr. Healy?
I've been a lawyer for 25 years. I've tried cases in the courtroom we were in on October 2nd. And I think I share Ms. Lauder's view on the significant ability that Mr. Ryan has demonstrated in this litigation. This particular timeline is impressive in light of the complexity of the issues that the town is dealing with. Mr. Ryan is up against a battery of lawyers. It kind of reminds me of David and Goliath. But I believe that Mr. Ryan has that well-aimed rock. So I would just urge you to continue moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've never been called David before.
Well, you are now.
Thank you.
I just want to know where he's getting all these stories and metaphors. Gary, I'll just say this, that being an attorney as well, I know how these complicated litigations can pose many hurdles and problems, and I am grateful on behalf of the town for what you do. And John, it's good to see you, and I thank you and the committee as well.
Thanks, Paul.
We'll take questions from the audience if there are any. And again, limiting it to things we can talk about. Nothing? Wow.
Okay, I guess answered all those questions.
Yeah. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work. Okay. We are at the point to talk about goals and objectives, I believe. And where you want to start? I did a new version of the ones I threw out there, and I asked Ted if we had any other ones. Did you get mine? Yep. Are yours?
October 9th.
Yep, version 3.
Version 3, okay. Right.
Okay, that's not for this. I would just ask, where do you want to go with this? Because I'm...
You wanted to speak to each one of them?
Sure.
You wanna...
Sure, and then add any that, Paul, you might have. The one did I put on the traffic study? I thought I did. Okay, we'll add traffic study at the end. And Paul, if you have any.
No, I mean, I know in our discussions, one of them, especially senior issues, is important to me, so I see there's something in there.
Yep.
Comfortable with that.
I had omitted that one by accident, because that's one of the things I'm rather passionate about, that we do not have anywhere near enough of. So if you want to go down.
Okay. Although, I don't see anything in here on affordable housing, and I think that...
Senior housing.
Yeah, but that's an aspect of affordability. I think we need to have a broader lens when it comes to that issue and be willing to explore different opportunities that provide affordable housing for all ages.
Okay, and the Housing Trust is frankly doing a good job of that. If you want to offer some other wording to this, I'm fine, as long as we leave senior housing as like a main thrust, because we really do need senior housing.
Well, maybe you could put a backslash and add affordable housing in there next to it. Sure.
Yep.
I also think we need a Truman Committee.
A Truman Committee?
Yep, it's time. All right. Sorry.
Apologize.
I think we need to develop a whistleblower policy. I think we need to develop some protections if there are issues going on within government that people feel a need to speak to but are afraid to do so. If we have a process in place that will protect both the person making the assertion as well as the person being complained of. I've spoken informally with the town administrator about this, so I'd like to see something implemented. I see a goal as kind of a general statement as opposed to the bullets that you've got in here is more of a tactical.
Well, I was growing up in the Bell system. If you had a goal or objective, you had to have deliverables under it. And that's how I grew up, because how do you know if you've made your goal or you're accomplished your objective? You have deliverables that say if you did more than that, that's okay too. If you didn't do all the deliverables, maybe some of those didn't happen because it wasn't appropriate. But that's how I grew up for 20-some years. We won't admit how many.
Well, I'm just looking at what we did last year, and it was kind of a general aspiration that gave us a little bit of freedom of movement. I just think that, you know, we can certainly do it this way, but are we inviting, you know, criticism if we don't accomplish each little bullet that you've listed out? And maybe there's a better way to do it as we go along the way. You know, I don't quarrel with some of this stuff, although there are a few things that I have problems with.
Well, why don't we talk through them? But I see your point, but if you don't have deliverables, you don't have the stretch to get things done. And, well, let's go through it. Aquarium?
I don't know why we're calling it a water company study. I mean, we're in litigation at this point, so.
It should say acquisition study. I always kind of flub that committees.
Aren't we past the study aspect of it?
No.
We've committed to litigating to determine the price, so that, wouldn't that be the goal, to kind of establish what the price is through the decision of the court? And then depending on the timing of that decision, we go forward from there.
Could you just put /litigation, because then you...
Yeah, that to me is, I mean, what are the deliverables? The deliverables are to get the price that we're advocating as established by the court.
And see, I see that as the first step, because that's going to have one of two outcomes. If the number is too big, we're done. If the number comes within range, then we begin the conversation with the town. Do you want to buy the water company? And that's the larger conversation.
Agreed.
So, okay, so if we put /litigation, and then after looking at the funding, I think we need to take a close look, and we've got several months to do this. Do we need another warrant article for town meeting?
That's premature, I think.
Well, we have now, between now and January, for the warrant article. And we'll know how much money this motion for partial summary judgment, there is going to be work there. And I think after that work is completed.
I think that's already been done.
All the work? No.
Well, as I understood, there was partial motion, a motion for partial summary judgment filed by the Water Aquarian. We opposed it. There was oral arguments last Thursday in front of Judge Sanders. She's taking it under advisement, and she's indicated she's going to rule December 1.
And there's been some more motions that were filed, and Carrie has responded to those motions. So it's going to chew up a little bit of money. How much is going to depend on how many people get disposed and in what kind of manner they get disposed. So I think we have to look between now and the January date to see if we have to put a warrant article together. And that's just kind of a reminder. I don't know what other deliverables we could look for. Carrie and the committee are doing a very good job with that. And then I think the big work will come at the end of this motion for summary judgment. We'll have an idea of which direction the litigation's going to go. So I'll just take that out.
I think it's important to recognize the time that this undertaking requires to do right. You're going into some kind of meeting tomorrow. I assume the town administrator is. I know that John Asher, Kerry, you, me, Ed Siegfried were there last Thursday. I actually doubled up because I had a pretrial across the hall, so it was 2 for the price of 1. But
Did you bill your client?
Of course I did. I was there on business. But I guess the point is, if I wasn't doing that, I can't take like 3 hours out of my day to do that kind of stuff. So.
So your bill was only half price then?
Oh no, I only billed for the time that I worked. I'm careful. Don't worry.
Well, I let Carrie Ryan recommend who goes in. I don't know. Are you going in tomorrow, Ted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think the town administrator is a vital link in this whole thing because he's going to fill us all in, and he's got the continuity of being involved in the process right from the get-go. So. Anyhow, I guess that's just...
So will you be scheduling more conferences when they're court?
I had a trial in the morning that fell through. A pretrial opened up in the afternoon that I could attend, so I took it so that I could see that hearing.
That was a pretty good one to
Serendipity.
watch.
That's it.
That was. Okay, the
I thought it was, well, I had a different impression of it, but I thought Kerry did a very good job
Did.
against a very smooth gentleman from Tennessee.
Is there something wrong with Tennessee? Just kidding you. They have a good football team.
Douglas MacArthur's father won the Medal of Honor in the Battle of Chattanooga. It's quite the city. You ever been there?
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to business. The master plan. This one, I think we really need. There is support out there for it.
I agree, but shouldn't we be partnering up with the school department on something?
Actually, yes.
Good.
I have talked to Liza O'Reilly. I reached out to her because she was the most vocal during the hearings and spoke very much to the fact that we needed a master plan. Vicki Donlin from Recreation. We have the support of the Rec Commission. We had that last year. Members of the School Building Committee, Tim Collins, at a number of the hearings, spoke that we need this kind of a plan.
I heard that message.
I've heard from members of the sports community that they will also support it. So I think there's widespread support. I tried to list out possible actions.
I think it's very important that the planning department be involved in this as well.
Don't disagree.
I mean, I like the idea of the big tent because the various ideas or the issues that we have to confront will emerge if there's more than one voice speaking to some of the stuff. But
I've also been approached by the League of Women Voters, one person in particular, but I'm sure other people would participate. So we have a pretty broad base support for this.
Sure. I mean, I heard it loud and clear that the need is there, and I've had some conversations, and obviously to the extent that we can be helpful, I'd ask Ted, I know you have, I don't necessarily call it expertise, but experience in this area, and to the extent you can help us, we'd appreciate it.
I think what I heard was a little bit different. I heard that people want athletic fields, they want the use of them, the utility of them, and I would say that the words here should be focusing more on the last 2 words in your action plan. What are we actually going to do? I know I've spoken to all 3 of you about beginning to look at Lynchfield as one of the primary areas where we could start to expand some improvements and make some concrete changes. So while I think getting the data and getting the study stuff together, I think what we're going to clearly see is what we all know anecdotally, is that we don't have enough playing surface for the amount of time and the amount of children that are playing on them, and let alone the adults that want to use them too.
I was going to say, let's
So,
include adults.
so because these are community resources, so I think we want to try to balance that between large committees and large studies and targeting what we need to get done.
The other thing I see with this, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, is if you're looking at a total sports recreation plan, you've got to prioritize and group the facilities, and fields is probably the most important, followed by tennis courts, and you can't do it all at once, so if you do one strata at a time. And this thing could go over much more than a year if it's done right. So you have fields, you have tennis courts, you have playgrounds.
You have land.
Yeah.
Land.
You have...
decide to use for a certain function.
Yeah, and hopefully in the needs assessment, there will be a recognition of what kind of fields or facilities we need, and then you can match that to the land we have. You also have swimming, because we have a very good swimming team and diving team, and they have to go out of town. So at some point after they take care of the fields and the tennis courts and the playgrounds, I see them looking at water sports, and I mean swimming type versus sailing and rowing.
My son swam in high school, and they had to practice at the pool in Randolph. But I don't know if that means I'm going to agitate to build a pool.
Well, why don't we wait and see what the needs assessment is? Okay, Paul, any more input to this one? And I would say when the committee gets put together, they could review this. I just did it from what I've done in the past with planning master plans.
I mean, I think we know where we need to go. I mean, so if this is the basic framework, I don't have a problem with it as long as we focus on what's important and we work together.
Yep. The debt management plan is next. This is something that I've been dying to do, and I think now is the right time. The wording under it, I worked with Mary Power from the advisory committee, since they have the financial policy, which I started the rewrite. It was finished by Jerry, and then it's been done one more time. It's been that long. So they look at it every 3 years, but there's no, under the debt service, which I brought with me, there's no conversation, if you will, about looking each year to see what is the right mix on a go-forward basis for long-term versus short-term. And right now we're sitting on 42 million, Ted, or 40 million?
A little over that, yeah. But I do have to correct you a little bit. I don't want to let anybody out there think that we have $40 million of debt outstanding and we're not talking about it. We talk about it a lot.
Yes.
And quite honestly, our options are somewhat limited in the initial stages because we generally issue just short-term annual notes because projects are ongoing. So the middle school is a good example. We could have issued $35 million of long-term debt at the beginning of the project. But that would have exposed us to a number of risks, one of which is the spend-down requirements the IRS has that say we have to spend this money within certain increments, and by 2 years we have to spend 95% of it. But more importantly, many projects have been stalled out over the years. The history is legend with this, that communities have gone out and borrowed long-term, and then the project got stopped for whatever reason, a union strike, a shortage of materials, something on the site, and then all of a sudden you don't meet your requirements and you have to make an extremely large rebate of arbitrage earnings to the IRS, which in itself, the calculation is fairly complex, and most communities have to hire a firm to just do the calculation, let alone pay the tax. So that's why we borrow short-term. We haven't had this conversation yet in a broader sense, other than within the debt subcommittee of the advisory committee, which we've done each year, because there isn't a decision to be made yet until next year. And so this is somewhat appropriate that we're going to maybe formalize a little bit more of our conversations, but I don't want anyone to think that we don't talk all the time about $40 million of debt on a regular basis.
It's talked about every year, but now we're at a critical place, and we have many new capital requirements that are going to be coming in the next few years. If we buy Hingham Mutual, or if we go back to the original plan of the expanding the senior center, the library is looking to, over the next 5 to 7 years, do a redo. We've got fire stations that need attention. So we're coming, and we have Foster and Plymouth River, and I know people don't like my saying that, but you know what? They need new windows. And the other schools are going to need work. So we need to have, and this is more a conversation, and document it within the debt service part of the financial policy. That's it.
I'm going to just draw your attention to what I consider to be the priority issue for you this year. That's your second bullet here. We will be issuing debt. We have to issue debt sometime in the late spring, early summer. And the choice will be whether we issue that debt on a short-term basis, a long-term basis, or a combination thereof. And the discussion that I've started with advisory and with some of you is I have to try to determine what your risk profile is as you represent the community, because there's a risk. I mean, it's a very simple analysis, or idea at least, in the sense of what every resident probably does at some point in time with their home. Do they get a fixed rate mortgage, or do they get an adjustable mortgage? And that's what we're talking about here, and the spreads are rather significant. And so I'm going to lay out for you sort of the risk and rewards, and then you'll have to make those decisions as the policymakers, and as advisory will have to make their recommendations accordingly. So I think that's really the bulk of what we really are going to have to do this year. And there is a real decision to be made.
And I agree with you, and that's why this thing is popped to the top. And I think the little working group that Mary talked about forming would carry the conversation year to year, but you're right, this is a critical year. Okay. The next one I had was tax relief. And again, I think we have to just keep this as an objective, because we are going to run into, and Ted, when he did the forecast, looking in the outer years, growth does not look like it's going to be robust as it has been. So we need to always have in our mind the tax relief, because there are lots of people in this town that are barely hanging on.
I think the conundrum there, though, Ms. Lauder, is that the lack of growth is going to significantly impact our ability to provide tax relief, unless, because it is a zero-sum game. We bring money in and we spend it. So if we don't bring more money in, then we don't have more to spend or more to rebate to taxpayers. And if we don't bring more money in and we want to continue tax relief, then we're going to have to take it away from other expenditures. And that'll be the struggle going forward.
So Ted, let me ask you a question on that. So some things I remember, and before I came here, I remember like the forecasts that you made, and I know there was some optimism there, and I know that at least initially your forecasts are conservative for a good reason. So when do we have to kind of make decisions about that? I mean, when will you know, maybe, is there a time where it becomes clearer as to what the forecasts say for the next year or the next 5 years?
So our first forecast meeting was a few weeks ago, and our final forecast, so our first forecast meeting is usually in the beginning of October, end of September of every year, and our last forecast is the end of March when we finish the budgets, because at that point in time we've spent all the money, so we better have a good idea of how much is coming in, or be pretty careful on our estimates. And in between is how we slowly move there. I would say that it moves very slowly in the calendar year through December, because the real marker for me is the end of January, when I receive the motor vehicle excise commitment from the registry of motor vehicles. Now I know what 80% of one of my big variables, $3.7 million of revenue, is. I pretty much know what the state's going to give us, and then we have to sort of define what they're going to do next year up there, which, you know, that's the area where we're really conservative, because we don't want to make an overestimate. In terms of growth and long-term growth, you know, it's very fuzzy out at 5 years, and obviously gets more clear as we get closer. And the reason it gets clearer is because we look at building permits, and there's a timeline. So when I'm putting growth in a forecast for fiscal 16, which we're talking about, it's in the ground and built as of January 1/15. So I can get a pretty good idea. I mean, it's either a building is there or it's not. And so the assessors can go in and get a really good handle on how much we're going to have next year. Then we have to get a little more subjective, and what I've started to see is that large permits and large projects are starting to wind down. The shipyard's almost done, Back River's almost done, Black Rock's almost done, The Bristols, while they've started a little bit, they just have one project on the table, and there's nothing on the horizon that I could quantify. Linden Ponds has not continued on with their development. They've stopped, and they haven't begun that. And so all of these things, if Linden Ponds pulled a permit, then I know 2 years out I'm looking at some revenue that's coming in, but that hasn't happened. What I'm hearing is predominantly on the south end of Hingham, business is bound by the inability to expand on their locations due to water and sewer. That's the big stumbling block on downtown. But Hingham's a fairly well built out community. I mean, the shipyard was one of the last real big areas of development on the north side. There isn't a lot more out there for large scale development. So what we'll do is we'll have the assessors go through and look at all development that's on the table. We'll match that with the planning board, the community planning development, see what they have in the pipeline, and start to project that out and see where we are. But right now I'm telling you that the tail years that we thought would be all Linden Ponds doesn't appear there right now. And so I think you're going to see $850,000 a year that we have for the next 5 years probably dropping down into the 400 to 500 range in the last 2 or 3 years of that forecast. And that won't do anything to our budgets today, but it'll tell us that when we saw those positive numbers on the tail end, they're likely to start to get more narrow, and we're going to have to start thinking about either other revenue sources or beginning to restrict spending now before it gets ahead of the pace where we can pay, unless the plan is to raise revenue. And for us, the only real way to raise revenue is to raise taxes. So that's where we kind of get ourselves a little bound up with tax relief. I don't want to be giving a mixed message that we're going to do tax relief, but we have all these projects, we have revenue coming in, we're not going to control expenditures, therefore that means we are going to raise taxes. That's the unsaid word.
And one other thing I'll just say is that and I appreciate that, thank you. There's, I guess, in the big picture, there's so many issues, like you say, in terms of whether we can offer tax relief, but I think one thing that we should try to do, and I assume we'll do more than this, is when it comes to our seniors. Someone gave me a great idea, and I don't know if they want recognition for it, but I'd certainly do that. But in terms of expanding the tax relief for the seniors, somebody that proposed was that there's certain things that we actually pay people to do where there's some seniors that would volunteer their time, and it would save the town some money and also save the seniors some money. And it's something I just hope we look at. I'd like to do that.
I will tell you that our single greatest success, our single greatest tax relief program has been the tax work-off program, where we're providing a substantial sum. 1%, which is our target last year on the property taxes. It's hard for me to fathom how that's going to change someone's financial lifestyle at home. But $1,000 is not 1%. It's a substantial more. In some cases, it's 25 to 30% of that tax bill. I think if you really want to affect helping seniors and helping those that are at the most fragile financial aspect of life here in Hingham, that would probably be the program to open, expand, and even increase those amounts. I mean, it's possible with legislation to increase those amounts, but we've gotten great value. We want to be careful that we're not telling folks that we're taking away municipal jobs by doing that, because every single union that I have in town would be right on me immediately if I said that, and we don't.
But it's a way to expand jobs.
This is work that quite honestly, our people can't get to.
Yep.
And we have great synergy. I know that we have someone who comes into our office periodically. Now we have a need. We have someone who isn't there on a Friday, and the office is short-staffed. So now we have someone coming in from that program to help us through that. And a lot of other departments speak to that. Everybody who works, the feedback I get about the tax work-off program is that the people who do it enjoy it, and the people who are receiving the work and working with them are greatly enjoying it. So that looks to me like a very successful program, and I would encourage you to keep trying to figure out ways to push money in that direction.
Chief Duff, sure. Are you going to talk painting hydrants?
No, yes. I just would like to speak very briefly to the tax work-off program. It's been a big success for the fire department. I would like to comment, though, that when you say it's $1,000, that is now $1,000 of taxable money. So they're not collecting $1,000. And I would love to see it increased somewhat, to make up for that. But it's been a huge success for the fire department. I would encourage expansion of it if possible.
Well, we can think about that this year. The reason I also put this in here, to Paul's point, is tax relief. If you look at the debt management and the tax relief and this unused levy capacity, the way we do our debt based on our risk profile also drives the need for money, because the debt service either rises or falls depending on the percentage we borrow at.
Correct.
So as growth goes down, if we're too high a percentage, that's going to eat up some of the revenue that we have coming in. And then this unused levy capacity does have me concerned on a go-forward basis.
Do you want me to comment? Or?
Sure.
I'd just like to jump to the South Hingham Study Group.
We'll get there. I should have put those.
It kind of speaks to what Ted's saying. We need to figure out a way where, through sensible planning, we can stimulate some growth.
I completely agree.
And that's the deliverable that the South Hingham Working Group is.
So what do you want to put? I think you all have a bunch of deliverables after the meeting, and hopefully you won't mind if we come to the other meetings that are.
We're still talking through stuff. I mean, this is a very complex issue, especially where in the mix there's a zoning change that's being contemplated by the major landowner. What are the impacts of that? How does the town absorb that kind of change? What's the exaction issue, mitigation? And we've got the South Park, and we've got 400,000 square feet of vacant office space up there. The bone and muscle that's redevelopment, an existing site, and maybe the park has got some old spots and it simply needs to redevelop itself. But in what form? And what's your stomach for that? If you're scared of a change that's new to that location, but may nonetheless be good, these are all things we have to work through.
Yep.
And it's not just, oh, geez, more traffic or, more stress on the existing infrastructure. Should we be starting from the ground up? And I believe we should be starting, from the base and just figuring what we have, what we would like to see, and what that would involve. Because Ted's right, the shipyard is a redevelopment area. There is land down on the north side, but I'm not going to disclose where I see it because I just don't want anybody sniffing around there. But, there still is land. There's a lot of
now that you've said that, people are going to be down there looking for it.
It's all you got to do is see it. You can look but not see. But I guess my point is that the South Hingham area does represent kind of the last area of town where there are some big blocks of land. Ted's right. The days of the big subdivisions, they're kind of gone. Conservatory Park, Baker Hill, Brandon Woods. We haven't seen those in quite some time. Now we've got the, buy an oversized lot, put in a roadway, pop 2 or 3 houses into it. Planning board has worked to kind of react to that, but they're hard. They're hard because people have become accustomed to a nice little, bucolic screen, and all of a sudden there's houses in the neighborhood, so they get all bummed out. This area on Derby Street is not that place, and we have to have our thinking caps on as to what we think will work the best there, but we have to do it in conversation with the stakeholders.
Absolutely.
We absolutely do. We're going to speak to the neighborhoods as well. We haven't had that conversation yet. Every single project that I ever did on the planning board always brings out the neighbors that live around it. And it's rare that a neighborhood supports the project. They just don't like the change, you know?
Well, can I don't mean if you...
Yeah, sure, talk.
And I don't want to minimize that, Paul, I agree with you, but to me, then there should be something we can do, reasonable development that the neighbors have a comfort level with, because, you know the whole discussion that's going on, and I agree that there's development opportunities, so I just want to, my focus will be on working with the group to get something together, and also just be mindful of what the neighbors have to say. Although I do understand neighbors don't always agree, but neighbors definitely should have a say. And I know you're not saying they should.
I think they should have a voice, but I think, if somebody comes in with a project that they're entitled to do as a matter of law, to say that an unhappy abutter has veto power over that, I don't think that's the law, for starters.
And I don't see that with the neighborhoods down in that area. I think they want a voice.
I'm not speaking to what the neighborhoods want in that area, only because we haven't heard from them yet.
Okay.
And I think that, we'll hear loud and clear what they want. But what I'm concerned about is if we're not having the conversation with the large stakeholders, two things are going to happen, or could happen. One is it's going to stay static and flat. And then we'll have to listen to Ted and say, oh, sorry, no growth. Or we're going to get something in there we don't like. And we'll have lost the window of opportunity to speak to it.
So I would just offer you guys an observation that this is probably, ought to be probably one of your, I know these weren't in any particular order, Irma,
right.
But this ought to be probably, and I would probably change it, you have the South Hingham Study Group, but I look at this as economic development and land development within the town. The town government is the largest landowner in town, and every other project or every other thing that you have on here is contingent upon what happens on that. Because you can't build fields if you don't have any money. You can't provide tax relief if you don't have any money. You can't do senior housing. You can't build anything at the harbor or any of these other things if you don't have a steady stream of income. And if you look at our forecast, you'll see that we do not have a lot of wiggle room to meet our current obligations. Now, we're doing it, and we're meeting them well. But we have demands from each of our main service areas, police, fire, DPW, schools, and they're not going away. They're increasing. And so, we did a really good job the last 4 years putting us back on track structurally, on a financial footing that's solid. But we could see that deteriorate very quickly if we don't continue to work on some level of economic development.
What if we put the South Hingham Study Group as a bullet underneath it?
How about we put economic development and then put South Hingham Study Group after that?
That's what I said.
Yes. Okay.
And then why don't we put underneath that, I don't want to make it the only development is the focus in South Hingham. I would...
Correct.
Sure, absolutely.
Put something underneath it saying...
Evaluate.
There are other areas of
town-wide
town.
development or something.
Sure.
Okay.
There are other areas of town that could be under pressure. There are other large tracts of already developed land that may change and have to go through redevelopment. So those are out there, and I think...
So, town-wide development?
It's just economic development would be the easier way.
That would be the topic, and then South Hingham Study Group.
Town-wide.
And then town-wide?
Correct.
So that way we've covered all the bases, right?
Okay.
And I think, Paul, you make an excellent point, because we cannot do economic development without engaging the public that lives here in what we're doing. That's it. This is their home. So, people, what's more precious than that?
And they pay taxes.
So, I think it's imperative to have that dialogue, and that's a significant activity. And if you want to move in these directions, this is going to require a significant amount of all of the administration's time and focus.
I think that we should carry forward what we were talking about last year, and that's the Route 3A corridor. I think that ties into the economic development scheme.
And I put that down under harbor.
Okay, to me, it's as long as it's in somewhere, I think it makes more sense in an economic development aspect, because it affects more than just the harbor, obviously. And we could also add the traffic study within this.
So if I pull you back on Route 3A, about 5 or 6 years ago, the Community Planning Department did some work with the Harbor Development Task Force to show how the Route 3A rotary change that they were proposing at the time could impact downtown and help continue the vitalization of downtown, because we spent a lot of time and effort the last 20 years keeping that downtown. And it's a beautiful one. It's not quite, you go to a lot of other communities and they don't have it anymore. And so while it's surviving and it's doing well now, we always worry about the future. Trying to link the harbor to downtown and getting boat traffic in there and other activity would, I think, be beneficial for that economic development.
And that's why I put it under harbor development with the Summer Street Route 3A, because the Summer Street really needs to be done. It's the worst road for accident, and then driving into the 3A and the harbor redevelopment. And you'll get a lot of support out of all the entire community doing that. So yes, it's there. Okay, I redid that one.
Okay.
Okay, we went up to, and the conversation about unused levy capacity, I think that has to happen, and that has to happen. And I've talked to Mary Power about that. That needs to be done in a very public manner so that people really understand what we're sitting on. And she has some ideas, and I won't throw them out now. I'll let the advisory committee mull over them first and then bring them to us. So we did the senior housing. Legal expenses.
I think, though, we should be talking about affordable housing a little more bigger, though.
I did slash affordable housing. Would you want to?
I mean, I think that the initiative with respect to the in-law apartment bylaw initiative is something that speaks to the affordability for our residents who want to live in their homes, either with their elderly parents or whatever.
What are they calling it? It's the, what is
accessory unit bylaw.
Thank you.
Unit, yeah.
I don't want to put in-law
So, but are we
there.
talking here about senior housing or affordable housing?
Both.
Both.
Okay.
We slashed it, affordable housing. So Paul wanted, which is good.
Yeah.
And senior housing is a biggie with me. And I could see how these accessory units might help us with our senior housing, that the seniors could stay in their very large houses.
Well,
I think that'd be great.
Yep. I think that workforce housing is something that has just started to emerge as part of this conversation, and I don't see why we can't look at that in some greater detail, especially in South Hingham.
One of the things I'd like to do after listening to Peter Foreman is invite him or someone that could speak to workforce housing.
MAPC.
MAPC, well, why don't we plan to do that at one of our meetings? Because Peter spoke for about, correct me if I'm wrong here, about 10 minutes, and everybody still didn't quite get it.
Well, it's not I mean, maybe it's been talked about for years, but I haven't really heard it until recently, so
That was the
I'm all
first
ears
time
on
I heard it, and
exploring that as an option, because
I think it's great.
My takeaway was that we're looking for a 30 to 45 year of age population group to come into the town to kind of energize it, to keep it from, I don't want to say dying on the vine, but
Let's not say that.
no, but I mean, it was something that was spoken to in the presentation, and it's being studied with some vigor, not just in the town of Hingham, but in the region by the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. So,
Are we talking about families, Paul, or are we just talking about just workforce?
drawing in skilled workers, with their families. Sure.
And that was the piece that wasn't talked about, the unintended consequences, because it's great to bring these families in, but then what's the cost to the towns in terms of increased schools?
It actually was talked about in the South Hingham Working Group June meeting.
Okay.
And I believe that's still on cable. It's an excellent presentation by the representative from MAPC, who grew up in this town, ironically, but can't afford to live here. So I think that I'd urge people to watch that, because that gives you a perspective, at least from the state lens. And again, it's looking down in the area generally as opposed to the town specifically, but I think there are some takeaways from that.
Good. And why don't we plan to, Sharon, can you make a note to remember this, because I won't, to bring it in, and, oh, actually, Paul, we can work with you on who to ask to come in, Because I think
defer to
that's a
the
topic.
Chair of the working group, Ms. Sneath,
Okay.
right on top of that stuff.
Legal expenses. I think we need, looking at budgets and the,
But don't we do that anyhow?
well, I don't think we've really looked at comprehensively our needs and what we spend. We tend to concentrate on Article 6, but there are many other places that spend on legal. And maybe it's time to consider having an in-house counsel. Many towns are going to that, or a part-time legal counsel. And I don't know the answer to that, but
Yeah.
I'd love to.
But I think you've seen the results of what happens when you just have a single counsel.
Well, what I'm saying, I'm not saying getting rid of all the special counsels, but for lesser work, if you had an in-house counsel, maybe a
I
great
don't know
deal
what
of.
lesser legal work is in this world.
Simple looking at some of these, like the secondhand metals.
A licensing
Simple-
issue?
Simple licensing issues, simple roadway issues, simple.
There's no such thing as a simple roadway issue. We've established that in great pain and detail from the other day.
Well, I think I'd like to see better minds than I. Just take a look at it. And maybe it comes back.
I know, but I mean, I think if you look at what we do ourselves, you can get a pretty good sense of things. You know, the land use projects are the land use projects. The land use issues and opportunities are what they are. Some of them are mundane, some of them are complex. And, you know, Kerry Ryan, I think, is proving that he's well worth the money the town pays him.
And he does litigation.
He's a litigator. And you know, we have a labor lawyer who is getting a workout right now. Some of those legal costs we can contain ourselves. Right?
Yep. Well,
So,
I think it's worth taking a look at.
Okay, I mean,
That's my take, because it is the graph I have going back to 90-something says we're on a trajectory upward, and even throwing the Hersey House out. So
yeah, but isn't it the rate of the increase? I mean, aren't we on an upward trajectory on all the budgets? They're
Not-
bigger now than they were 10 years ago,
But
right?
you have operational budgets and you have support budgets, and I look at this one as a support budget. You have police, fire, and schools.
But it's
Those are
react.
operation.
Yeah, except legal to me is a little different because you're reacting to what's presented to you. You're not, the legal guys aren't generating the work out of thin air. They're reacting to stuff. They're being tasked with things.
And maybe a small group looking at this once can come back and say, no, it's not worth it. There's no other way to do it. This looks pretty good. Keep doing what you're doing. My opinion.
So I would
Gannon?
offer you, oh, sorry.
Well, again, being the new person on the board, I always err on the side of saying it would be helpful to know something. I would agree with Paul that this may not be a big issue, but I would feel comfortable if we took a once-over look at it, and if it doesn't need to go beyond that, then fine. I mean,
Me too.
Yeah, I guess I just think that when you make it a goal like that, you're sending a signal to the residents that this is a problem, and I don't think it is. The money is a lot, but you know what? We got a big budget. We got a big government here. I mean, we employ a lot of people. We have a lot of issues. There's expectations of performance that are, you know, people have of us. We're a first-class town for a reason.
Agreed.
We need good advisors, and like I won't repeat the idiom that I did last time, but, you know, it's true. I mean,
I will let you know that you will be taking this up, whether it's a goal or not, next month when we do our budgets, and you have to vote a budget, and you have to obviously understand the implications of it. But I know advisory we'll deal with it. As I know you know, Ms. Lauder, they tend to get into the budgets a little more than even the Board of Selectmen or any board does, and they will. And in the past, they've looked at this pretty carefully, and I actually see someone in the audience, Karen Johnson, who is chair of the advisory committee just a couple of years ago, did a pretty thorough review of what we should be doing on this. And I think I'd ask you guys to go back and look at some of those documents when you look at this, so that we don't wind up just
Actually, Karen was the one that, and there were those before her, but as soon as she came on, because she's a very accomplished lawyer, I think you were the one that said we ought to estimate before we give out the work, and we should have a lot more focus on it, if I remember correctly.
Which is what we do.
Yeah. Well, now I think we need to look a little bit more globally, and to your point, because we have Article 6, and then there's probably 4 or 5 other places that even when we were on advisory, we never gave a close look to. And all of those places, well, for instance, Housing Trust, that's not in Article 6. Lincoln School Apartments is not Article 6. Country Club is not Article 6. And the CPC, because we're spending a lot more time at the front end rather than doing the oops, we should have done at the back end, they're using legal funds, also not Article 6. And did I forget anybody? I think there's one more. So I think a global look at this.
Get that review. I just wanted to take a look at that review at some point.
Yeah, I'll get a copy of that.
Thank you, that'd be helpful for me.
Yeah. So I think this one can be put away quickly, but I do think we owe it to the taxpayers to take a look.
I don't think we should ignore any aspect that involves money. People have to pay taxes. I just want that made clear for the record.
And
we don't.
And you will all be getting an invitation to quarterly budget meetings, which are, the selectmen are posted for that meeting. It's a public meeting, and you're welcome to attend. Sue Nickerson, our town accountant, runs those meetings and takes all the departments through where they were for the quarter and what's going forward in the future, and what are their issues that they're concerned about.
She does an awesome job, for the record, and she really, everybody's on their toes, but it's a very good session if the two of you aren't in court and stuff coming. I know it's, you guys are earning a living, like for real money.
Try it.
Okay, the next one is Harbor Development. And I didn't really change anything there. I took suggestions from the two of you and just incorporated them.
Can I talk about that?
Sure.
I don't like to sound like a broken record, but the RFP for the Maritime Center for Barnes Wharf, Steamboat Wharf.
Barnes, it's just Barnes 1.
We're just not ready for that. We're just not. Last week, we did a transfer to continue the funding with respect to the FEMA issue. We approved and signed off on a grant that is calculated to study the inundation threat caused by rising water levels. The seawalls need to be completely rebuilt. The seawall by the Iron Horse was inundated last year. We've got one falling apart. We need to harden the basic infrastructure down there. And, you know, we've got a maritime program. Lincoln Maritime's been there since the early 70s. It's a community sailing program. I think the approach to this should be that we extend whatever the arrangement is on that wharf with that entity, with the Maritime Center, and focus on 3A, focus on hardening the seawalls, and then we'll know what we have. And to put out an RFP with an expectation that there's going to be a 30-year lease on the wharf at this point it's premature. It just is. And it's going to cost whoever bids on it or submits a proposal a great deal of money for a very uncertain project. The Rotary needs to be addressed definitively. It has to be. We as you know, we have an opportunity down there that's recently surfaced, and I think, you know, the confluence of the opportunity The rotary issue, which, if you really want to do this right, that's got to be figured out. If the rotary stays there, or we're told that that's 15 years down the road, this is an exercise in futility. It's going to cost, town resources in terms of the time we spend on something that we can't actually do. It's going to cost, whoever wants to participate in it, a great deal of money to do it right. I've received informally the due diligence costs to do something like this are going to be significant, to the point where it could be 6 figures. And that, to me, is unsettling. My daughter works down there at this point, and I don't want it said that I'm making this pitch just because of that, but I just see this as putting the cart before the horse on this particular piece of the waterfront. I also see that we are putting an emphasis on an area of the waterfront that may not appropriately be a priority. Because if we have a flooding issue down there, and we haven't adequately prepared for it, despite having notice of it, as established by this research that this grant is going to tell us about, it's a year or two out, and we're seeing, pursuing this project down at Barnes Wharf, and yet in the meantime, Station Street floods out, the source pumping station floods, and all of a sudden we've got 1,000 houses that can't use their toilets. We're not going to look too good. And I think that we should just really try and focus on starting with the foundational elements of what we need to do down there. And then we'll be in a better position to know what we can do with the entire waterfront. I think RFP is a big mistake. I think any kind of 30-year lease under these circumstances is a big mistake. We have, as the two of you now know, we have an opportunity down there that's a good one. But we got to play this right. Play this right. Why are we doing an RFP under these circumstances?
Well,
seriously.
Let me jump in. I think this is the right time to do the RFP. Commitments were made, several years at negotiations. It's going to take, whoever the winner is of the RFP, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to get this built, and you're well into 6 figures. It's all going to be private money. It can be built because Ted was walked around the site, the Barnes 1 site, for what was a potential building to replace the Curtis Boathouse. All along, this can be done without the rotary being changed. Obviously, it's better.
How?
You
don't have the parking.
You can't increase the usage of it, but you can build it. And you can have a safe place for rowing and sailing, which rowing does not have space now, and that's becoming more and more critical. And if these respondents, there is a crying need in the community, and the community is supporting the move towards a maritime center.
And well, it should, but it's got to do it rationally.
I think this is the rational way to see what's that. No one may respond to the RFP, and then we'll go to Plan B. But
I'm sure
I think
somebody will.
You don't know. We're assuming we'll have at least 1 and maybe 2 people. But if we don't start now, and we did make commitments, then it's going to take longer to do.
But we also made commitments to people on Summer Street that we would figure this out.
And I believe the
how are we doing
movement.
that?
I believe the movement to a new maritime center will help us.
How? How will it relieve the pressure on the Summer Street residents?
It'll help us get more people going to the state saying we want money to fix all that up. And the same
with pitchforks, or
no,
Paul. Yeah, but I mean that's.
If you have people lobbying to get money to fix the rotary, so I think we need to go forward with this. I think it's critical.
I think we need a battle plan that's a little more rational when it comes to dealing with the state. We are
I think that can be done in parallel
With what?
with going forward with this. Because it's going to take several years to get the funding. It's going to take God knows how long to get the permitting.
We need a
done.
plan. We need a proposal
The-
to go to the state
The
with.
RFP, the
No, no.
respondents will,
No, because the RFP doesn't speak to anything about the Rotary.
correct.
I looked at it.
Correct. There's another, well, the RFP isn't done yet.
Yeah, but it's, no private applicant is going to redesign the Rotary.
Correct.
So, I mean,
But there is a need, and we can move forward slowly with the new Maritime Center.
but this isn't slow. That's my point.
It's very slow, because to get the RFP out, to get to town meeting, to get a long lease, that takes us into April. It will take 3 to 5 years to get the funding and go through the permitting. So we're already 5 years out on this.
You've got a community sailing club, facility, organization that in large part operates from year to year on the revenue that it makes. It's not, you just look at the equipment down there. They're not-
Can't rub two nickels together.
Right, so you're going to tell them, you put together 50 to 100 grand to do due diligence to put in an RFP.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell them to do it.
Well, you're going to put it out there. And
Yep.
if they want to be in the play, that's what they've got to do.
Well, Lincoln right now does not encompass the Hingham rowing program. They allow the rowers to use the same space and are very gracious about storage and stuff, but we need a combined organization to do this, and it's going to be up to whomever out there to respond to the
I
RFP.
have to tell you, I've been trying to figure out what this Hingham Rowing Association, Hingham High Rowing Association is, and it's very murky and very unclear.
It's very large.
It's, yeah, but that shouldn't drive the planning needs of this area. This is not about how many people bang a drum. This is about sensible planning and doing preliminary things first and then moving on. We build a foundation that's strong, and then we build a house. And then we fill it in and we add the amenities and everything's good. We don't start building a house before we know what kind of foundation we're working on, right?
Just my thoughts. Paul, I appreciate what you're saying. It gives me food for thought on a lot of levels, but again, as an elected official, all I hear, and again, it may not be from everybody has an opinion, is that there's support for this, and I'm not saying every aspect of what's in the bullets, but in terms of the development, the RFP. I heard that during my campaign. I hear it since, and so I'm not necessarily following a drumbeat, but I'm following what I think in my constituents, and you may know, you're maybe wiser than me about this, but my gut tells me that we need to do something. We need to make a step. And I know, and you may know, that as time goes by, we may be able to change our steps to modify things as it comes on. But and I'm not saying you're saying do nothing. You're saying fix certain things and then see what we got. I get that.
I'm saying flip the bullets. Look at the bullets. You've got Summer Street down at the bottom. That should be at the top.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I took them as a collective, vote.
Yes.
They weren't numbered to me. I know, and I'm just saying, so when I see them, I think that they're all priorities. I didn't know that was just the process chronologically we were going to do it.
It's not.
And all I'm saying is, I'm new to this, but the people that I've talked to, the constituents, I have to listen to what they say. And I'm open to suggestions as we go along, but if you ask my opinion, I would say let's move forward. Slowly maybe, but let's move forward.
And
Here's my reaction to that comment. And I enjoy hearing you explain that. But when I got elected to the planning board, I had to say things to people and make decisions that they really disliked hearing. But I just had to do it. It's like, if everybody in the room wants me to do the wrong thing, that doesn't mean I'm going to do it. And I'm not suggesting that that's what you're saying, but...
Definitely not saying it's the wrong thing.
No, I know that. But what I'm saying to you is, I think we will be respected more if we put our energies into developing the fix for the 3A Summer Street corridor and the seawalls, and then we move into the other aspects of what is on this goal.
And let me counter to that. I understand.
Really strongly believe that. I just think we're making a huge mistake.
I understand where you're coming from.
I don't think you do.
I do. But I also understand.
Persisting in this, though.
Yes, I am, because there's a large community of support out there for a new maritime center. And hold on. And there is a huge support for rowing. So I disagree with you that you don't know who the rowing organization is. It's very large. It's the largest sports program and the most successful. I know they're all most successful. But we need a home for both of them, and we also need a home for the recreational rowers and sailors.
Could I make a suggestion to you that I'm listening to what you're saying, but maybe the idea is to just simply move this last bullet of the Route 3A off into its own goal, separate from the other sides of the harbor. Because the reason I want to say that to you and get your support or not, so I know direction, this is probably one of, along with the economic development, one of the most time-consuming processes for us to do. The RFP is almost done. The review of it and the discussion down the road will be another issue, and the warrant articles and all that stuff. But the amount of meetings and the stakeholders involved in the Route 3A Rotary conversation is enormous. That could be a singular goal all by itself for Betty, myself, and everybody else in the office to work on, nothing but. So, to put it in with other things, it doesn't really give it the requirements it's going to need if you want the thing to be.
Then it's fine. The issue with the Route 3, that's a good suggestion. Route 3 Rotary is, it has to, 3A Rotaries. Summer Street 3A
So now it's
Rotary.
at the top.
There you go. It's its own, and it's at the top.
But I
Now
need,
now are you happy?
I'm not happy.
Here's the problem with it. Paul, if we keep it
Unrealistic is
together,
the better
no,
word.
I think you might be a little unrealistic, only because this has to go through the TIP process. And that process, the word arduous makes it sound easy.
We're going through with the Derby Street
And
overpass.
how long is that taking? And the movie.
That's the point.
And the movie, well, if you wait till all this is done, you're out 10 years, maybe, if we get lucky, and can get it beginning, because we've done the road audit, but there's no money yet.
This town was established in 1635.
Right, and people were sailing then.
Yeah, we got time. We got time to do it right.
I think it needs
You must
to
be a
go
young
out.
man, you think you got time.
We got time to do it right. No, we really do. Let's do this right, even if it takes a little longer than some people might otherwise like.
The problem with getting the road work done first is Lincoln will no longer exist because it can't exist in its current condition.
So I received communication from a board member at Lincoln yesterday. They didn't know about the RFP. They were a little concerned, and they approached me about extending their lease. I think we at least got to go circle back to the people who have the lease to see if that's what, I mean, if you're expecting them to be the bidder on the RFP, and one of their board members told me that they're not really aware of it, and they'd like to talk about extending the lease, we could be having a mixed message. So I'm not going to, I think you should have a conversation about that
I will
first.
do that. And the RFP is very close to going out.
Yeah, it's in final stages. And we're waiting for a review from a few people and some
Like
comments.
me, and I've done it. I've been promising Betty for 2 days she will get it soon. But I think for the good of the rowing program as well, we need to move forward.
While the RFP is out on the street still, and if we get the reviews, we'll be ready to put it out in a couple weeks.
Good.
I still think it's worthwhile making contact with Lincoln
I will do
Maritime.
that.
If in fact they are under a misimpression, or some of their board members, and they're looking for something else from us, kind of futile to be going off on this other exercise if they're coming to us saying, hey, we want something else. We cannot extend the lease, just to be clear.
Correct. And that's one of the problems.
But we can license the property to them. The Board of Selectmen has the ability to create licenses, and you could license their ability to continue to use it as such as they are now. So,
What if another group were to come in and say, no, we'd like the license? What would happen?
if it was at the same time, you'd have to choose between the two licenses. But once someone had a license and someone else came in, then you wouldn't have to say, okay, well, I'm going to give it away from you.
Well, I think we are becoming more and more a maritime community for recreation on the water.
definitely.
As well, this summer, the kayak and paddleboarding has been a huge success. But I don't think this thing can wait in terms of
I would just remind the board that group has been down there since, I think, 1972.
I was there. I was part of the group that started it, Paul.
So, my attention really hasn't been focused on it until I became a selectman. I mean, I did the permit on it, and I know how many cars get parked there, and, I know everybody's got to play nice down there. But I also know what the realities are with what you can do down there, and what you can build, and what you can't, and how many cars you can park, and you can't do much with that. Not in its present configuration, not with that rotary there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some opportunities in the waterfront that, we owe it to ourselves to just take a step back and let's do this right. Really, let's do this right.
Paul, I have a question. I'm not directing it to you, but Ted mentions. I mean, I would think that, and I'm a little surprised that people don't know that this is proposed at all. I mean, I find that unusual to me, and I certainly, and Ted had mentioned it, but I would think, and I would encourage people to call us and contact us and say, this is what I want, because, you talk about, let me just finish. I will say that when I get contacted by people, it's a favorable. I have not been contacted, but I've said that it's a problem. So when you bring up issues, Paul, it's good you do, but I'm not hearing that from anybody else. And I'm almost saying, if you have issues, please let us know. But, so.
That's the problem, Paul. I don't think the people that contact you fully appreciate some of the issues that are in
the contrary to that is that people that if they do appreciate it, aren't contacting me either, but then the downside, and they should. That's because we're making decisions. This is only goals. This isn't a.
No, I know, but we've
Yep.
seen, we had a very generous Hingham resident do a conceptual plan, what utopia looks like down in Hingham Harbor. And, frankly, he's an experienced developer, and he'd be the first to tell you that those are just pretty pictures. And I don't say that to insult him, because I say that right to his face, and he totally understands and agrees that they're conceptual. That's not reality. That's just what somebody thinks could look good there, but that's not what the reality's going to be.
Well, in the study, it's always, all this is subject to permitting and space and all kinds of other conditions.
Why would you have somebody submit a proposal they can't build? Why would you do that?
We're not. And Ted,
Really?
I will follow up, because I've had conversations
I don't know about
with
that.
people on the Lincoln board who have asked me when the RFP is going to hit the street.
Okay.
So there seems to be perhaps a disconnect on the board. Because and I'm very much into the maritime community, both all
I was
all around
surprised to
the
get the
harbor.
phone call.
Well, I'm shocked to get it,
Yeah, but
and
you
I'll
know
follow
what?
up.
Does it really matter? I don't care if David Farragut wants to storm the Mississippi on this issue.
Where do you get these things?
This is the reality of what you're dealing with. If you can't build the structure on that wharf, that was a wharf.
How do you know it can't be built?
Because I look at what it was built for.
Okay.
I mean, that
But how do
wharf
you-
was built to offload ships and, boop, and then take them off in wagons. Now you've got cars on there, you've got pilings, they're in distressed condition by the very facts and findings of the last study on these seawalls. I think they're in D, I think that conceptual study that was put together expressly states that. I was eyeballing that the other day.
I know,
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
I've taken in everything you said. I sense that there may be support to put it as a goal. It doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. We can continue the dialogue on this thing.
Yeah.
Just talking issuing an RFP.
I know that, but it's 3 to 5 years out. I mean,
But we don't have to, also,
I'm
we
not saying
don't
is,
have to award
we don't want
the
to beat this thing to
RFP.
death tonight. I'm saying
Right.
we've made our point. I'm just saying, Paul,
Yeah.
if you want to keep talking about it, it's fine. But at this point, I'd like to see what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
And
One thing I will tell you, Paul, is that,
Which one?
you, look at you. Sorry, Paul Healy, Selectman Healy. The town is not obligated to accept any of the RFPs, so we can reject them. Your point is well taken, though, that we are asking the community, not our community, but the community in general of folks that would build one of these to invest quite a bit of time and energy to meet that RFP. That's not going to be a cheap RFP for them to answer. But then again, that's their choice, isn't it? They don't have to respond to it.
Okay.
I think I've said enough.
Could I respond?
Yes, please come up and
You just have to speak
introduce
in one of the mics
yourself.
because they can't hear you at home if
Yeah.
you're not 12 inches away from them.
Richard Pinoni, president of the Lincoln Maritime Board, and we are aware that the RFP is coming out. We're a bit flummoxed by the fact that there's no opportunity to have a dialogue concerning what an appropriate RFP would be and provide input. And frankly, 3 months, 6 months is an exceedingly tight time frame for any organization to raise the money, make the investment, calculate what cost might be. So we're wondering exactly how we will end up responding to the RFP and what the RFP will require. And if only one organization with perhaps one goal were to respond, it might not be best for the community. So I'd love to hear some clarity on what the process will look like. In my ideal view would be a dialogue on the front end about what the RFP should seek and what might be feasible.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if we have that dialogue and you give input to the RFP, then Lincoln Maritime can't bid on it.
So
I think there could be a public process.
Yeah, if I can just, maybe I can give you some clarification. So when Irma asked me to start on the RFP, and I got a sense that the board was interested in it, I began the work on it. I spent, along with Betty Foley and some other folks, quite a bit of time working on it. But what I did is I reached out to members of the rowing community and the sailing community, trying to be careful not to pick people that were on boards or committees that might actually submit a proposal, because as Irma indicated, if I had asked you, which I actually did, I did ask you to ask Rick if you'd sit on this committee with me, and the answer was
no.
You can't, because if you're going to submit a bid on behalf of Lincoln Maritime, you can't take any part, you can't participate in the creation of the RFP. It'd be a conflict of interest. So we tried to create it pretty broad so that it would encompass virtually any proposal that was out there that came forth, and then it would give the Board of Selectmen an opportunity to look, well actually, myself as Chief of Criminal Officer to look at it and to recommend something to the Board of Selectmen.
And during that process, once the RFP goes out, and it is being designed very broadly, I think we can give one hint. We're going to be handing out the study that was done by DJ McKinnon. But it's going to be very broad. Once a response comes back, that's when a long dialogue can take place. Because we see that happening, but also we would like to get the warrant article on this year's warrant because of the lease issue with Lincoln.
And I can tell you that we've crafted it in such so that we can, we understand Lincoln Maritime is out there. I mean, we're not, blind to it, and that you may be one of the primary bidders. And we also understand that you might not have $3 million or $5 million sitting in the bank to build this building tomorrow, which is part of the RFP. So we've included plans, and we're looking at which organization that would submit this would give us the best plan. Because at the end of the day, the selectmen are going to ultimately, after myself and then them, are going to have to make a recommendation based upon a plan. Because I don't expect someone's going to come up and say, here's $5 million as part of the RFP, we bonded it, and we're ready to go and build whatever you want. It's going to be, we're going to do fundraising, we're going to do, and we're looking at that. We're looking at, what would the program entail? What are the programs offering? What is your experience offering these programs? And so those are all aspects of the RFP that we're going forward. So it's pretty wide open.
Okay, my preference would be that a draft RFP would have put out and there was an opportunity for public comment, not private organization comment, which I think would be in compliance with the law, but you've got the process that you're going forward with. So
has that ever been done?
I've never really heard of towns putting out our draft RFPs for public comment. I have to look into that a little bit.
Put another way, this group or the subcommittee could certainly hold a public meeting about what people believe and what should be included, and it has not been a very public RFP production process. And there's a lot of valuable knowledge that the public has, rowing has, the Board of Lincoln has, I have, that I'm disappointed it hasn't been solicited in an appropriate way, and I think there could be a mechanism to solicit it that would lead to the best RFP.
Well, we thought we did when we asked for someone from Lincoln Maritime, and then we realized we couldn't, so we grabbed someone who...
No, we have somebody from Lincoln who's...
They're not on the board, though.
Correct. They are.
Maybe they were at one point in time.
No, they're there now, but they're like a user of it.
But they're not on the board,
Correct.
specifically.
They're a user, and there's been no communication concerning Lincoln's view through them, so Lincoln is feeling... which I understand.
Because we can't. That's the part where we have to have that wall there, because, we can't draft an RFP for you.
But I do believe a public hearing or a public process where the committee solicits input from the public is possible at some point in the process.
Could we ask if our lawyer, if that's possible before the RFP is officially issued? I've never heard of that, but that is a good idea.
I haven't either. I mean, generally, municipalities don't do that,
Yeah.
but that's not to say we can't. There's a lot of things we've never done, and we say, oh, well,
let's just make sure we can do that and stay within the four corners of the law.
But I can tell you that if Lincoln Maritime, and I was approached by one of your board members, if you're interested in extending the lease, we cannot do that. As you know, we've talked about that before. But the town does have the capability, this board does have the capability to issue essentially the same terms of the lease. It's just called a non-exclusive a license to operate. And the board can do that on an annual basis, has to be revocable each year. As you recall, and I know you do very well through negotiations, you're looking for a long-term commitment, so I really never proposed that before. But if you're looking to move past your lease for a couple of years while we sort through things, that's something we can talk about.
I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to be heard.
Thank you for coming.
I'd just like to comment. You indicated that we could check with our lawyer to make sure that's something we can do. Those are the kind of things that drive up legal costs.
And it does, and if we had an on-site, well, hang on, if we had an on-site counsel at a lower cost, that to me is an easy question for an on-site counsel to do.
Maybe.
Versus pay, perhaps.
But what if it isn't?
Well, then we'd pay more. However, I think an on-site counsel might solve some of the issues. We're saving our special talent for the bigger issues, which we seem to have more and more of. Just a thought. Let's do your traffic study first.
I thought we did that.
No, we haven't talked about it. We just put
economic
it.
development.
Oh, we put that, oh, all right, that's not a bad place.
We can put the Truman Committee under...
No, we're going to keep that separate because I think that's a really good idea. I thought we had a whistleblower law.
The audit committee has been discussing it for a number of years now. Haven't really come to some conclusion on it. I think they're starting to coalesce around some ideas.
May I suggest, based on the way I've been getting beat up, this would not be a bad thing to do?
Well, the basic concept that the audit committee is looking for is that organizations to reduce employment liability, and generally it's employment liability, create whistleblower committees so that the employees have a venue to vent if they feel that something is wrong. And so a couple of things as it's starting to come up in discussion. When I spoke to one audit committee, I made the recommendation to him that when they think about how they're going to create a whistleblower policy or committee, they make sure that they keep the executive branch of government, my office and your board, somewhat distant from that, because that's the neutrality of something like that. If someone is going to complain about an employment issue, they're likely going to complain about me, because I'm the one who deals with most employment issues. And I certainly don't want someone to say to me that I was being unfair. They have an avenue to go that's independent of me, and that's something important.
Which is usually how an audit committee
Correct. And so
formed.
I think that's why it's well versed over in the audit side and the audit committee, and I know they're working on something like that.
Excellent. Why don't we put it on the list and just call it, you called it the Truman Law?
The Truman Committee, Harry Truman?
The buck stops here?
Yeah, do you remember how he made his bones?
Yeah.
In the Second World War?
Yeah.
How? Studying waste in government.
Oh, great.
What?
What do you want to call it? The Truman
The
Committee?
Truman Committee.
The Hingham Truman Committee? Can we... How about just the Hingham whistleblower?
No, I like
Well,
the Truman Committee.
I think the audit committee is, like I said, a couple of your goals, by the way, they cross-pollinate with other committees, and
That's
so
good.
I know it's great, but just try to remember that, I know you do, that those committees have their views too, so we got to mesh them a little bit.
They're good committees.
They are, they are.
The last thing I had was my constant, I'm going to begin to sound like you, Mr. Healy.
I doubt that. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
The facilities.
We got the camera guy laughing.
Bob, did we wake you up? Sorry.
Where that was coming from.
Yeah.
Facilities management organization. I'm impressed with what the school side of the town is doing, and I'd just like to continue to keep this at the front. I do think we need it.
Does that mean you're not impressed with the town side?
I think
Sorry, I'm only kidding.
I think we could do better, not only because there's so much to do. And if we buy Hingham Mutual, you should have technical people doing this kind of stuff, because you've got some very valuable people kind of sort of doing it now. That's just my 2 cents.
Can I weigh in on that?
Sure. Or my 5 cents at this point, since I keep mentioning it.
Backed up again, I would love to see a facilities committee. I maintain 3 fire stations, and maintaining 3 fire stations is not my expertise. My expertise is firefighting and managing a fire department.
And emergency management.
And emergency management, and I frequently have to call upon some personal friends to come in to look at buildings, to give me advice on how to proceed here, there, or anywhere. I'm very fortunate that I can do that, but the town needs a facilities committee, a committee that can independently look at the fire station and say, yes, you need a roof this year, and next year you need to replace the gutters, and I would endorse a facilities study committee significantly.
Thank you.
Do we have anything in place now, Ted, that would help us do those things without?
Sure. The goal of the Board of Selectmen was to look at this last year, and we developed our own facilities management. We identified each of the building managers, and Mark is one of them. He has 3 buildings, and each of our department heads have different levels of expertise, whether by learned or experience or other venues about the buildings. But we allocate, the engineering department, Roger Fernandez, in that area to help manage most of these, and does a great job. And then what we do is we outsource as we need. So, for example, this building, it's a pretty big building. We've been operating it since '98 without really any significant issues in terms of the day-to-day management of it. But we know that the units up top need to be replaced, the HVAC units. Now, we don't necessarily have anybody on staff with that expertise. We bring in companies, they evaluate them, they give us proposals, and then we'll sit down with Roger and start to evaluate that.
The outsourcing you're talking about?
So, a lot of the stuff isn't rocket science, and our own head custodian here in this building has done quite a bit of work, essentially following around every engineering company and service company that comes in here, and then takes away a good chunk of their work by doing it himself. It's just a mirror of the community, I think. It's roll your sleeves up and get it done. Like Dennis Corcoran doing it over at the library. Would it be great to have an organization to manage all this? It'd be terrific. There's $200,000-$300,000 a year of annual expenses that we don't have right now that we manage on our own. So that's, 4 firefighters, 4 policemen, 4 teachers. It's a zero-sum game. And if we want to try to do everything, we're going to have those costs. For me, I don't see, although I understand what Mark is saying, and several department heads need some help in how to make some of those decisions. By and large, our buildings are in pretty darn good shape. The 2 outlying fire stations, and historically the town has not done the greatest job taking care of its fire stations. It took us a long time to get Central done, well over 10 years of conversation. But again, I think that is also consistent with how the community is focused on other priorities first. So to me, I think we have the pieces in place. We're doing them. I spent some time with Paul Field over in the schools, and what he said is, please stop studying these things. Just give me the money that you're using so I can fix the things that are broken. I know what's there. And I think that's where we really are.
And I would tend to agree with you. My concern is, the chief, I just want to know if there's some way or mechanism we can maybe pay more attention to the fire. I mean, in other words, if year after year, chief has a problem with the buildings.
What we've done, and to be more specific, is we've created a book on every single building we own in town, and we've gone through all the systems, and we've evaluated each system that's in the building, the roof, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, and where we think they need to be fixed and not fixed. And I think that's sort of the support we're going to be giving to Mark and the fire department. I don't need to give as much to the library because they sort of tell me what they need because they're very focused on it. This building, it's a pretty big building. We have a committee together that's working at it that includes people who built it. So Betty and I, who do most of the work on the buildings, we're not afraid to ask for help when we need it. And we're pretty good at saying, hey, time for us to get some help on something. But overall, I think, identifying things and managing them as we've done has been working pretty well for us.
Can I throw my 5.5 cents back in? Mark, do you want to say something?
Well, the only thing I would add with that is after a project's done, then we need somebody to come in and look at it and see if it's done right. And again, that's not an expertise that we have. You spend $25,000 on a roof from a company, you need somebody to come in and say, yes, they did it right, or no, they didn't do it right, come back and fix it.
And what I'm looking for here is, because Roger's overloaded. He does a great job, but he's overloaded. There's more work there than Roger can do. And what I'm looking for is a mechanical engineer with a PE to work for Roger to take over the day-to-day facilities so that Mark can call this person on the phone and they can do this. Each time we bring a vendor in to do something, that's good. But you and Betty are awfully valuable and should be doing other stuff than doing facilities. And each time a vendor comes in and does a job, you've lost the knowledge of what that vendor has done. So you can, a mechanical engineer with a PE, the 20 towns that and I haven't canvassed all of them lately, but a good number of them are now going to 2 engineers depending on how their public works operation is configured. 1 to run the DPW and 1 to do facilities and some combination thereof. And I think this would be money well spent.
Before I delay your meeting another month, I'm going to leave. Have a
Good night, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. So that's my 5 cents in here.
And, Irma, I would say, like I said earlier, I don't think any employee here would say no to more help. And I guarantee you, Roger and all the building folks would say the same thing. I'm just going to tell you that when we do the budget this year, and you ask me to put $100,000 plus in for a new engineer over in the DBW, I could tell you right now, I'm going to give you 10 other items to spend on that are going to be completely more compelling than that. And that's I think the why
I'm going to continue asking.
I haven't commented. I've kind of sat quiet because I probably talked too much on the Barnes Wharf, but
No, you didn't.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate
You can keep talking because your points are well made.
I understand the importance of surveying the facilities like your own house. Everybody tracks, the kitchen faucet's getting a little hard to move, I'm going to have to replace it. Or, hey, I put that roof on in 1990, it's now 25 years later, how much longer do I have? I get that. But, if this is, get a committee together, we've got some great talent in this town, and we have no trouble with people stepping forward to volunteer their expertise for the betterment of the town. That I think we should take advantage of. And, we've got some great carpenters, electricians, plumbers. I mean, that I can definitely sign on to, but growing government, I think, needs to be done pretty carefully.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not into, adding another 100 large to the highway budget
That's the end of engineering, not the highway.
Whatever. You know what I mean.
Very
if we can
different.
do this without spending 100 grand, okay. But if what you're advocating is hiring somebody, that's going to cost that kind of money, I think we need to continue the conversation a
new
little bit.
mechanical out of college would not cost
Yeah, but,
anywhere near that. And would pay
there's
for
some lawyers
themselves.
that start and they make 35 a year, and they work for CPCS, they last 8 months and they leave. I mean, this is a town, I think, that builds relationships over time with its employees. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to get some young whatever and have them cycle out in 2 years and then we have to start all over again. You know, I spent 11 years working for the town, and yeah, I didn't stay, but I formed relationships with the guys I worked with that'll last a lifetime. So,
What are you proposing, Paul?
I think a committee with some good talent. Let's take a survey of the buildings, do a walk around, see what the state is, and then we take it from there. Then we know.
Well, Ted's done a nice job putting the book together, but it's a book.
Betty's done a nice job putting it together.
It's a picture in time.
Sure, let's update it.
And well, it's a little more than update. As things break, you have to not only fix them,
Survey it, expand on it.
do what the schools are doing, looking at what's broken and what are my options to fix it, versus come in and it's broken, fix it.
I don't think they have a PE over there.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think they have a PE, but I do know they've got somebody with a master's in engineering or almost.
Is that something?
Yeah, but
that would
that person runs the heating systems at each school, and that's like a high-tech thing, isn't it?
No.
Would that be
It's a
something that
thought.
was- I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Would that be, Paul suggested, that be something compatible with what you guys already have in place?
Well, you know, the town has talked about, you know, a permanent building committee is what we would call it in the industry usually. And we've talked about that, you know, geez, I think about 6 or 7 years, and I can remember someone talking about it maybe even 10 or 15 years ago, and it kind of evolves over time. You know, we actually kind of have a permanent building committee. It's just not a committee. All of us know, Betty, myself, and Roger, and folks in other buildings, you just heard Mark say it, we have resources that we call in the community. And those are town residents that have worked here, lived here for lifetimes, that have PEs and have a much greater degrees than that. And they help us through a lot of these things. Sometimes they're on capital outlay, sometimes they're others. If you wanted to formalize that and make it a committee, you know, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. But, I mean, we're doing that already. I just think, as I look at all the things you have on here, and I know normally this has been an issue for you for a long time, this is sort of how we do business every day, and this is not really a goal, other than, you know, let's try to continue to keep our buildings at top shape.
Well, I would tend to think that, and again, it depends what the proposal is. I'm not sure we need to have the engineer at this point, but I would be open to, if there's consensus on something on a committee level, but if not, you know, I don't know. I'm waiting to hear what people want.
One of the advantages that the committee had, Paul, that we talked about a long time ago, was continuity. One of the most difficult things for a municipality is continuity. Transfer of information from year to year. I mean, you three will serve for a period of time, but you know, eventually you won't. And, you know, how do we transfer that knowledge from the next to the next to the next? And we have that problem across every board and every committee in town. You're on the school committee, then you're not. You're on the advisory, then you're not. And what's the next person? I know that, you know, Betty, myself, Sue Nickerson, and virtually everybody who works with committees have spent a lot of time trying to work through how do we transition through. I think the best argument I ever heard about a permanent building committee was that we would have a standing committee that would allow for the transfer of knowledge from period to period, whether it's generation to generation, 5 years to 5 years, 10 years to 10 years. Because you're right, if I leave, you know, actually it's Betty. If Betty leaves, you're not going to know where a lot of things are, unless we continue to do what we do, which is follow her around.
We're still looking for stuff that only Maryland knows where it is.
So there you go. And so that
Sylvester.
Yes, you know, and we have those people in virtually every department. So, you know, that probably is the biggest help to us. Leave it at that.
Okay, I'll type all these changes and send it back out. Good. Very good. We have some more votes, and then we'll do town administrator reports and selectmen reports, and then we'll go into executive session. Ted, do you want to take us through the other votes?
Sure.
I think these are easy ones.
Just have a few small votes at this point in time. You've got a vote to approve an agreement between the town of Hingham and MAC Trailer Manufacturing for aluminum closed refuse trailer in the amount of $65,679 $679. This trailer was part of the FY capital budget. The vote is in front of you because it exceeds my authority of $50,000. So I can't sign this contract.
Any discussion? This is pretty standard.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The next vote is a change of manager.
It's actually in addition to the Board of Managers, if you, excuse me, Ted.
Actually, that's right.
For Legal Seafoods. This is one of those, they call it an inverse process, where they file a master application with the ABCC, and the ABCC virtually approves everything ahead of time, and then it just comes to the town for a vote. It's just putting one more person on their Board of Managers.
Any questions? They come before us periodically.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Who's going to read this one? Oh, you did the so moved.
Very straightforward.
That was pretty sneaky.
I did.
That was sneaky.
My eyes are tired.
You want me to do it?
No, he already did it, because he did so moved. Kind of snuck this one under. Okay.
I thought that was
next-
Legal Seafoods.
It was legal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was.
So now we have to
What's the
do,
next one?
The one-day wine and malt beverages liquor license to Diana D. for the South Elementary School Fall Festival at Old Derby Academy on Saturday, November 1, 2014, from 7 p.m. to midnight.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Ted, do you want to do the exemption for Walter?
okay, the last one is to approve an exemption from MGL Chapter 268A20 as requested by Walter Foskett, a member of the Light Board. And I asked town council to opine on it, and he did. You should have that in your package along with Mr. Foskett's request now. So, what he's doing is he's raising a potential conflict, and he's asking you whether or not you would agree that the conflict is not significant to his discharge of his duties.
And he's already gone through the state ethics, and they have no issue with this.
Well, he's disclosed.
Yes.
Yes, you're right, Paul. He's disclosed to state ethics, and state ethics has, I believe, 30 days to respond to him, or it becomes automatic, I believe.
And I thought the 30 days had passed, so.
No, the letter to ethics is, I may have the dates wrong. I thought it was the 2nd, but...
Well, whether they pass or not, to me, is not as important as my desire to speak to Mr. Foskett personally and speak to Mr. Coughlin. I know I'm spending some of the town's legal budget, I'm sorry, but this is kind of important to me, only because I think he's a light commissioner, and he's asking a member of his firm who's in off-council capacity to be the lawyer for the light company.
She already is.
No, I understand that, but I've never had a problem with Mr. Foskett. I just want to talk to him and get a better sense as to just exactly what this entails.
I guess we'll hold this to next week, but I'm fine with it, and maybe it's because I've spent some time talking to him on this,
Well,
and
I've had that opportunity, I have.
read the whole package.
I've read it too.
Okay.
So we can defer it to
Do you
next
wanna
week?
hold
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Selectmen and town administrator reports?
I could just report a couple of things briefly. The department heads enjoyed today as the guests of Department of Conservation and Resources, DCR. They enjoyed a wonderful boat ride to Spectacle Island and had our department heads meeting at, I'm sorry?
Petix Island.
Petix, I'm sorry.
It is Spectacle, wow.
Well, what did I think of that?
Wow, that's a cool island.
I always wanted to go to Petix Island.
I would highly recommend it because they've done tremendous amount of work up there. I want to thank our hosts. They're very gracious to take us there and back. Provide a wonderful facility. It was a nice event for the department heads today. Other than that, we're starting our budget process, and everybody's gearing up. So,
I'll start with Mr. G.
Well, we're done with all our business other than comments, is that what it is? Good. All right, well, the other thing, well, I'm looking forward to Sunday with for the dedication and the annual event for Seaman Foss. I really am looking forward to that. I will say it was a treat and a privilege to have Mr. Grossman here. That was a nice thing that we had the privilege to be part of. And the only thing is I will thank everybody on our committee that's putting together that community forum on to prevent substance abuse, which is the 22nd. And we keep getting calls from people from different places, different communities that want to work with us on the South Shore. And I talked to someone today, and they are so energetic and so committed. And it's such an important issue that I really just hope that everybody can come by and listen to what's going on out there. It's a great educational tool for families and for folks in the town. And we have a very good cast in terms of people speaking, in terms of education and opportunity for assistance. So I hope everybody can come by.
Cool. Mr. Healy.
and again, that's October 22nd.
It's at the middle school from 7 to 9.
Oh, at the new auditorium. Awesome. Awesome.
I'm actually looking forward to going to that myself. I just want to make a comment about last week. As distasteful as all that was, I think we're all in agreement that we don't want to be acting on anonymous letters. We have very good people that work in this town for us, people that have really staked their careers and raised their families, on the living they make working for the town. And I was once one of those people. I raised 3 children. Actually, my wife did most of the work.
Good recovery.
Yeah, it's true. But I had a lot of pride in my employment with the town. I felt like I had a stake in it. And I know it's awkward for me to say this in some ways, but I think that the employees were rattled by what happened, and hopefully we can clear the air and move forward so that that feeling of mutual respect returns. And I think one of the ways that we can do it is simply just take a vote right now that we will not respond to anonymous letters, and we view them as good for nothing more than the circular file.
Paul, no one responded to the anonymous letter.
I'm not asking about
because two of us were misquoted in the paper, and that's going to get straightened out.
I think it's important that I'll move that as a board, we agree that we will not respond to anonymous letters. We will not initiate investigations as a result of anonymous hateful letters.
Change that by one thing. We have not and will not.
I'm fine with that. I think that the employees need to hear that assurance.
Yeah. Well, and again, I didn't plan on speaking earlier. I didn't know who Ms. Dever was. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. But I just want to make it really clear that I agree with you 100%, that we have not and we should not respond. And so just to make it crystal clear again, nothing that I ever did, question I ever asked was based on a anonymous letter. It's disgusting. It was a terrible thing, and I talked to Ted recently, and I think not only should we affirm that we wouldn't do it, but I just want to make an extra effort for all of us to work together for the better for the town. You know what I mean? We're going to have different opinions, but in the end, in a sense, it may be a wake-up call for all of us in terms of just the need to work together, because this town is a wonderful place. And I can't help when somebody misrepresents my position based on the fact that I used 2 words in referencing a letter from Ted. But I would hope that the Journal in the future would do a better job to clarify their positions, because it's completely unacceptable for a great newspaper to quote somebody or misquote somebody and misrepresent something based on the fact that I used 2 words that I said I didn't know what that meant. Somehow that meant I was accusing somebody of something. It was beyond comprehension that I would have been misrepresented to that level. And again, I just want to make sure that's clear.
And I want to echo what he said, because I also talked to Mary Ellen, and at the outset, I told her, I said, I want you to put this in the paper, that we have not, we will not, and on a go-forward basis, we will continue to not address anything that is sent to us as an anonymous letter. And the issue that we're dealing with last week, which
is that a motion?
Yeah, let me finish the sentence. Okay. Or do you want to?
I want to get it. I want to get a vote. I want this to be
you're going to get the vote.
Okay, good.
Because there's no reason not to take it.
Absolutely.
We've never used an anonymous letter. The issue was brought to me, and if we had a whistleblower policy, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
But that implies it was internal, and we're not going to have that conversation.
Right, but the fact that I told Mary Ellen it was not any part of that anonymous letter, and I was misquoted also, I am not happy. So, okay,
I brought that up because I really want the town employees and the people that have put us in these seats to be assured that we are not engaging in investigations based on anonymous letters that are in large part hateful, malicious, libelous, and calculated to destroy people's good names and reputations that some of them have spent a lifetime to develop.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
Do I have a second?
Sure, second, third.
Second as amended, I guess, right?
Sure. All those in favor?
That's my job. Hey.
I introduced it, so just
put your hand down.
With me, will you?
Put your hand down. That's my job. That's why I can't second anything unless you don't second something. So, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Done. I just abhor the fact that people think we react to anonymous letters. That's all we'd be doing.
On a lighter note?
Yeah.
Press release for the flag initiative went out today. There's a gift account set up in the treasurer's office. This has been a great effort. I've emailed to the department heads, inviting them to all participate in a way that is calculated to be inclusive, so that the community expresses its support. So I hope that we get a positive response, and just thank you to the different departments, Betty, Ted, Andrea Young, Lisa Potts, G. Montgomery, Sue Nickerson. This has been a real group effort, and shout out to Keith German in Djibouti.
Hope he's watching.
I bet he is. There's a slight delay, though, I'm sure.
Okay. I have a couple things. SNAP, and Bob, if you can pick up the flyer, which I'm not sure how well we're going to be able to read it. Our Special Needs Athletic Partnership is in process of planning the winter programs. The summer and fall programs have really been great. We've got about 50 kids across all the programs. We're beginning the winter programs, and the first one, there's a new dance program that'll begin on October 8th and go to December 10th. So we've got a 9-week program with the final performance on December 10th. If you go up to the SNAP website, this form is there. There's going to be 2 groupings of kids, 7 to 13 and then 14 to 22, and it's open to both boys and girls. And it's going to be at Plymouth River Elementary School. So watch for more programs. We're actively moving to introduce new programs. So it's very, very exciting and awesome to be part of. We just did a segment of, and I invite everybody to go on HCAM. This one is super. I do a show once a month, or more frequently, called On the Issues, and usually we spend a lot of time talking about what issues are in town. And right now, because of we're not into the budget cycle and the Fields project is over for the middle school, I've been inviting people in. And the last segment we did had Hans van der Luft, who is the new chair of the HDC, came in, and we talked about what the HDC does. This is a historic, thank you, it's not Harbor Development, Historic Districts Commission, thank you. And what they do, how they operate, and his goals for the future, to make it a very interactive process, and to look at it as being able to come and get free advice that you would pay well over $200 an hour for, in protecting our historic treasures and the historic districts and all the historic homes. What we also did, Hans brought the architect and storyboards for the small Christian Science church that on Main Street that is so quintessentially New England, that is being turned into a single-family home.
With a steeple.
With a steeple. It absolutely is one of the most delightful shows, and it shows what we can do as a town, working with the owners and working with a rather wonderful architect who is as excited as the project, and it's really a mind blower what they've done. All the asphalt behind that was the parking lot is going to be turned into gardens. They're adding on a little bit because, of course, a church is not exactly a house, and you need a house-type kitchen and things, but
It's a house of God.
It's a house of God. That's good. That's good. But it absolutely is going to be beautiful. So try and catch that show. That was one fun to do. I'm going to do one with Snap, and to go over the year we've had with a little bit of video and pictures. Then I'm also going to do one with the HDIC, the Hingham Development Industrial Commission. They're very active. They did a great job at the South Hingham Study Group.
Yes.
And I want Greg Lane to bring the statistics, and we're going to put that on HCAM so that people understand what we're dealing with down in the South Hingham area, the area we're looking for economic development. And I want to thank the HDIC and the Hingham's Merchants Association, who now I can't remember what night. It was a night this week. That's all I know. And they had a meeting over at the South Shore Bank, Tuesday? Thank you, and the Lincoln Building, and invited all the merchants to come in and express their concerns and ideas and talk about the process that's going to happen over an undetermined amount of time, where the building is going to come down and a new building is going to go up, and hasn't been permitted yet, so this may change in the permitting process. There's going to be 5 retail units on the first floor, 2,500 square feet, give or take. Then the other 2 floors are going to have 4 apartments each, and each apartment is going to have 1 bedroom. And the issues, everybody was able to get out on the table, the issues, and parking came through loud and clear.
Good.
So the planning board and all the building department is going to have some activity as they go through this process, but it was, really appreciate Liz Klein and Greg Lane for hosting this, so it was really good. And the last thing, and it should be the last, we say goodbye to Brian Noble yesterday. Yesterday was the last day for Noble's Camera Store. Very sad. But we wish him well as he goes on to, and I can't remember if he's being the town administrator or the town manager for Northbridge. So he's starting a brand new career, but he leaves an awfully big hole in downtown Hingham.
Interesting segue.
Yeah.
From
Yeah. Okay, anything else? We will miss Brian.
Good night, everyone.
Wait a minute, we're going to executive session, and I have to read this little statement. Hey, I recommend the board enter executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, taking, lease of value or real property because discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. The board will not resume open session this evening. So a roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we wish you all good night. And don't forget, Sunday afternoon, Seaman Herbert Foss, the celebration of his birthday at Fort Hill Cemetery at 3 o'clock.